Hey guys, good to see you. What is up? Welcome to the latest edition, the latest episode of the movie discussion, Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Cole with my fellow cinephile Jay, and we are back to our usual Tuesday time slot, which we hope to continue in the foreseeable future, although we are quite late tonight, but it just seemed for a while like forces are conspiring to keep us off the air, but
yeah,
we're here now, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. So yeah, this is because of the weird break we had in the summer, we wound up stretching out the Masters of Film series longer than we meant to and stuff. So now we are clear of that, and to get back to sort of business as usual, we thought we'd do a couple films that are maybe a little lighter, just a little easier, less that you'd have to be less in depth on and stuff, just to keep some more surface sort of level of analyzing and conversation and stuff and discussion. And for that, we have a film from 2000 based on the novel of the same name from 1995 by celebrated British author Nick Hornby, and that is High Fidelity, which I can actually show you because it's a movie that I own and have owned for quite a few years, even though this is the first time in quite a few years I watched it, because I don't know, sometimes I get overly sensitive to relationship type movies, especially ones, and this is right up there from ones that kind of remind me of myself. But I managed to watch it twice in the past couple days, and there was not really any reason to necessarily watch the second time, except that I just forgot how much I kind of really enjoyed the movie. So yeah, this is probably the first time I've seen the movie in at least 6 or 7 years, something like that. So there was a lot of stuff that I'd forgotten, and I don't know, I definitely enjoyed seeing it again.
Yeah, I actually didn't know it was based on a novel until this watch.
Yeah, Nick Hornby, his first novel was also made into a movie, although I think a lot less successfully, that's about a boy. And I think that movie was sunk right off the start by the casting of Hugh Grant. Hornby continues to write novels to this day. The only ones I've read are those first two from the 90s. I've read both About a Boy and High Fidelity. And I can, as someone who's read and seen both adaptations, I think this is definitely easily the better adaptation. But a lot of it has to do with the casting of the main character. John Cusack makes for a much better... what's his name? I already forget his name. But... Rob Gordon. It was Rob Fleming in the novel, right. but Rob Gordon. Anyway, I find him a much better choice in this role. I mean, they're different characters, but they're both sort of similar characters, and they're kind of aimless 30-somethings. In the case of About a Boy, he's even more aimless because he doesn't even work. Because the backstory in About a Boy is that he doesn't even work because he just gets money because he gets royalties. Because his dad wrote like a Christmas novelty song that gets used all the time. So he just lives off royalties from that. So at least in this guy, he owns his own business and stuff. This is about a record store owner. So another one of the sort of cosmetic changes from novel to movie, of course, is the location. Being a British author, Hornby usually wrote about stuff in England and London and stuff. So now we move from London to Chicago. But it's a good movie. It worked fine. One of the reasons Chicago works well for it, I think, is because Chicago is also a city that's known for sort of having a thriving music scene, no matter when you're sort of setting it. The novel came out in 95. This comes out in 2000. So it has, a very 90s feel to it as far as the music and soundtrack goes. So yeah, really, the two main elements in this movie are relationships and music, and sort of how they can intertwine. And the movie opens with John Cusack's character breaking the fourth wall and talking to the audience, as he will do throughout the film, which I think works well for two reasons. One, they kind of had to do it because they decided early on that there was a lot of really... It's a novel that's told in the first-person perspective. So they thought there was a lot of narration that was important that needed to get across, so this was the way of doing it, even though obviously people always worry about that in movies because sometimes it can come across as hokey and stuff. And I guess John Cusack was originally a bit skeptical because he just thought there'd be too much of himself in the movie, even though he is the main character. But I think he's the type of actor, especially back at that age, where he has that sort of easy-going sort of personality or whatever you want to say that endears him well to that, having that sort of casual conversation with the audience. there's certain actors where you wouldn't want to put them in that position. I don't know, like you wouldn't want to do with, like, say, John Malkovich. Although, to be fair, now that I think about it, of course, I can think he does really great in a movie where he does just that, but it's a completely different tone, and that's why. He's in the 1985, I think, adaptation of the famous Tennessee Williams play, The Glass Menagerie, and in that he plays Tom, and in the play, Tom does directly address the audience. But I think that works fine because it's very serious. It's not a comedic thing at all. But in this, it's sort of a lighthearted comedic thing, and maybe John Malkovich wasn't the best example now that I think of it, but like I said, you can just think of certain actors that don't have that kind of easygoing approachability, comedic stuff to them, where they wouldn't be able to do that. But John Cusack handles it fine and works out quite well. And so I don't know, I enjoy that as it goes throughout the movie, him having an ongoing sort of dialogue with the audience. And it starts right off like him talking about the two things I said and how they linked, saying how, parents today are worried about all these things that kids get exposed to. And he said, but they don't seem to worry about the fact that kids are exposed to like thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of songs by various pop artists that are all about heartbreak and breakups and devastation and all that stuff. And that is very true. And then, of course, the movie just sort of weaves in and out talking about that kind of stuff. But who else is in the movie? Well, like some John Cusack movies, his sister Joan Cusack is to be found, where she plays a role where she might as well be his sister, but she's not. She's actually like a friend of a friend, but she's more. I think they've played brother and sister in movies before, though.
Have they? Okay, I was thinking.
I think they have.
I couldn't think of a movie that they were together besides this one.
But in this one, she's not his sister, but it almost works out the same way. And of course, you got Jack Black as one of his. He works he owns a record store, and he has two employees, Barry, played by Jack Black, and Dick, played by a guy whose name I don't know. I've seen him in things, but he's not a very prominent guy. And a big part of that is how they're really big sort of pop culture geeks, especially when it comes to music, of course, and they're big music snobs. And one of the things I think we'll really get into later on is sort of talking about sort of the snobbery and stuff. And, this is a great example of a movie that shows you hipsters, at their zenith.
Well, yeah, this is 2000.
Right.
And I don't remember records or vinyl, we're calling them vinyls now, being a thing then.
Well, that's the thing. Like, his store is not popular.
Right.
This is before vinyl really made a comeback. This is the 90s, where only really the most hardcore people were still hanging on to vinyl and collecting it. So that's one of the reasons why his store is not as successful. And he explains, he says, the only reason my store doesn't go under is because I have this fairly dedicated clientele that make an effort to shop here. And he says, mostly kind of lonely young men, which is certainly true in real life.
I mean, like I frequented record stores. We still called them record stores, even though it was mainly cassettes and CDs that they carried. But I don't remember there being much, many records around at all. And this was like a period of time when I was obsessed with music and a lot of the music they discuss in the film. Which,
yeah, same here.
Like, that's mainly what I remembered about this film. I don't think I've seen it since it came out because all I really remembered was the record store stuff. And I kind of got this and what's the other
Empire Records?
Yeah, Empire Records.
Those are definitely my two favorite movies about records.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean that's mainly what I remembered about this film. Was Jack Black in the record store, being crazy. Kind of before Jack Black was a household name.
Well, I was going to say, just getting ahead of ourselves a bit, if you look at career trajectories, I think you can pinpoint this as the first role where Jack Black really gets to show his talent. He'd been in movies well up to this, including back even when he was a kid. He was in some fantastically bad movies, like the schlock fest of the 90s, what's it called? Airborne, which is really something to be seen. Where
he was in that with Seth Green. Okay,
him and Seth Green are both in it. They're like both high school students where this idiot surfer comes and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an awesome movie to see. For all like the crazy, shitty, bad things about the 90s, it's all in that movie.
Like, I knew Jack Black because of shit like that, and
I didn't
know the episode of the X-Files he's in.
Oh, didn't even know about that.
And I think Seth Green may be in that episode also.
Oh, that's funny. And he and Seth Green are in another movie together in supporting. roles right before this movie, and that is, even though I haven't seen it in 100 years, the Will Smith movie Enemy of the State.
Right.
Which is, in supporting roles, you have Seth Green, Jack Black, and even at the beginning, you have, before he's killed, you have, the guy from the Kevin Smith movies. He was Brody in Mallrats.
Yeah, Jason Lee.
Jason Lee. Kind of blows my mind that all those guys were in the same movie together, even though none of them were very important. It was the Will Smith show.
It's very much like a 90s feel to me because, the X-Files and, were you a Tenacious D fan at all?
Yeah, and again, this is before they broke. They would break about 2 years after this movie. Although they had already been around. For instance, It's funny, like they'd been around throughout the 90s, but they weren't really popular. For instance, in the movie Biodome, that is them playing the concert that they throw, Tenacious D, which is pretty funny because you think, there's the real comedic talent in the movie, but they're off to the side while Pauly Shore and Baldwin are the stars. It just, and of course, he's in the sequel that shall not be named, but I have to name it, even though it's going to make some people cringe. He's in the third Never-Ending Story. Again, as when he's a high school student, he's one of the bullies, and he's actually, it's a crime against cinema, is what it is. It's just awful. But he's the only sort of good. He's sort of amusing. He's like the head of. There's this group of bullies, and he's like the leader of them, and he's actually quite amusing. It's worth just checking out his scenes. Like, I wouldn't say sit through the movie, especially if you liked the first Never-Ending Story, because this is one of those sequels that destroys the everything that you liked about the original. Like, the stuff they do to the stuff from the original is ghastly. But anyway, as I said, so Jack Black was somebody for me. I wasn't aware of. He popped up in movies, but it wasn't really till he started to become a star that I really was aware of him. Like, I saw this movie years ago and probably didn't think out of it. This is only a couple years before he became a star. I'd say in 2003 was really his star-making turn when he starred in a movie I really like, School of Rock.
Well, yeah, he was a legit movie star at that point.
Yeah, but I still think that this movie wasn't a breakthrough role exactly, but it's the first role where he really gets to show the Jack Black talents. Like the way his dialogue goes, even some of his movements, you have him dancing in the store, making things and stuff like that. And of course, at the end, he gets to sing.
Well, he was in Demolition Man in '93.
Was he? I have no memory of that.
There's just a few scenes you have to pause to see it, but yeah, he's in there. He's in the credits.
I had no idea he was in that movie.
A film that I really recognized him from was The Jackal from '97.
I'm one of the only people I've never seen that movie. I know what it is. Bruce Willis is like an arms dealer or something, or chasing an arms dealer, but I've never seen that movie.
I wouldn't say it's bad at all, but go see the original.
There's one from the '70s, right?
Day of the Jackal. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
We should do that for the British crime series.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to do. Sounds good. Yeah, we have a couple crime series things in the, whatever future. We're thinking maybe British crime, Korean crime.
Coming soon,
or maybe just Asian or whatever like that. So that's something that's in the works. Little tidbit for you guys.
His scene in that movie is really memorable. I just tell you, he gets his arm blown off. And it's pretty funny stuff.
Does he react in typical Jack Black fashion?
Oh yeah. Oh,
nice. We pointed him out before when we did Waterworld that he was one of like the bad guys. He was a pilot in Waterworld, so he was always around.
He's all over the place.
Little roles, well before he became a star. But as I said, my argument or point is, I think this is the movie where he really got to show what he could do if you put him in a main role. Like, this movie's almost sort of like a little audition for him to show that he could carry a movie. Because again, he's not the main character. John Cusack is the main character, but you do get to see the stuff that Jack Black's good at. And he's really good at playing this music snob at the store. Right from the get-go, we know what the store is all about when that middle-aged guy comes in to look for a record for his daughter, and it's the I Just Called to Say I Love You single by Stevie Wonder, and Jack Black Barry just like tears him apart and just makes him leave the store because he's just so offended by this guy's poor taste, even though it's not even his taste, it's his daughter's. Like, there's no way your daughter, there's no way your daughter likes anything that bad and stuff like. And we've all met people like that. And I think one of the poignant things about this movie, as we said, it came out in 2000, has a very 90s feel and stuff, is, the internet was around then, but it was much different. It really is some good predicting and foreshadowing of the world we live in now, which is toxic fandom. And that's kind of what's going on here. For instance, in this video right now, I could do some sort of digression and bring up a movie or something and say why I don't like it, why I think it's overrated, why I don't think it's any good. And then people in the comments could attack me and tell me why I'm a fucking idiot, you know. And it's all why? Because I'm saying I don't like a piece of art that they do. And that's enough for them. And I mean, it works the other way too. You say you like something, and then people attack you for that. And I mean, that's every day now with the internet. But this was back when it was at least a little more isolated. You know, it wasn't everywhere. Now it's just everywhere. People just viciously arguing with each other. Like, they just can't stand it. Like, they have so much venom and hatred for the other person only because they have a different opinion about some sort of thing. Like, again, like a piece of art, like a song or an artist or a movie or something.
Well, it's not like you're saying people that like that are stupid, you know?
No. But a lot of people do say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Know? And a lot of people fearlessly say that, and then they seem to get upset when they get attacked. Like, they go on Twitter or whatever, and they boldly declare, if you like blah, 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 you're a moron, blah, blah, blah. And then they act all offended or surprised if people attack them. You know, and I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. That's a good song. I like that Stevie Wonder song.
Yeah, and it's funny too because after he leaves, and this brings us up to one of the other main thrusts of the movie. And another thing that makes me identify with the movie I like is lists. The movie is all about top fives and stuff. I even used to work on a site with Ryan where we would write top fives. They weren't all top fives, but they were 5 lists, 5 It's defunct now, but it did some good stuff. And I continue to make my way through the world in making lists. And I'm different than a lot of people in that my lists aren't even just here's 5 things. No, they're actually in a specific order. Number 1, you know, and this movie's all about ranking and stuff like that. So after he leaves, he poses a question. He's just like, you know, what was it like the most crimes that a previously respected artist had done or something like that? And he's like subclause. Is it even fair to say that because Stevie Wonder was so great, you know? And again, it's just showing they have an upper level of snobbery. And the main reason they do their list is also just to show off their various knowledge of music and stuff. And that's really where it comes from. At one point, when John Cusack does give in and give a list, Barry just criticizes it as saying, you know, it's basically a pussy list because he just went with, because all he did was really go with like safe choices and then stick in one fairly recent song. It was an obscure song by Massive Attack, if you want to know, as to make it a little more bold. And you know, so yeah, the movie's full of that. And again, one of the reasons I have sort of a difficult relationship with the movie is because there's a lot of it. I see myself in a lot of it, and it doesn't look good. Because John Cusack is our main character, and then he's the hero of the movie, but he's in many ways not sympathetic. And in many ways, he's transparent about this. He's upfront, and you know he will let us know right off the bat. He knows that was bad or wrong, but not all the time. And sometimes he can do or react in a way that I think, for some people, at least me, really pisses you off.
Well, I mean, for at least half the movie, he's trying to figure out what's wrong with these girls. Why did you choose so and so over me? When the whole problem was himself. Like that's the whole problem from the get-go.
But the thing was, he wanted an answer that said it wasn't him. That's why he went looking for it. That's the difference between him and me. Like, so yeah, one of the main narratives in the movie is like after his latest girlfriend leaves him, he decides to re-examine it, and he's talking about top 5 worst breakups and stuff like that. And he has a funny line where he says like one didn't even mean anything to him, but he just put it there so that she wouldn't make the list. Side note to that, the one he says, like the breakup that didn't really matter, is explored a little more in the book, and she is one that he does go and visit. It's funny too. He says that she'd originally been dating his friend, and he stole her from the friend, but then she eventually would get back. So, but when he finds her, she is now married to the friend, and they have kids. And when he visits them, they're really happy to see him, but he just is bored to tears and just wants to get out the whole time because all they do is talk about their kids. It's actually pretty funny. It's too bad it didn't make its way into the movie, but not everything can. But yeah, that's the thing. He's very self-centered, as a lot of people can be. And the whole thing is about his ego and his feelings and stuff. And again, it shows how what's the word I want to look for? How man, oblivious he can sort of be to other people's feelings. Because when he's talking about it, he recalls a girl that he dumped himself, and at the time he wasn't even thinking about it. He dumped because even they were teenagers, and she would not go all the way with him. He was he was putting his hands all over her and stuff like that, and she rebuffed him. So he dumped her out of frustration because he thought they should have sex. And then he found out and he found out immediately afterwards that some guy that he knew had sex with her, and he was furious by this. And I guess he lived with this for years. When he revisits her and says like, "Oh, and you wanted him instead of me," and then she does a really good dressing down there because their reconnection, she basically seemed to have forgiven for him until she finds out, oh no, he hasn't changed or matured at all, because he's just like, yeah, you didn't want me, you wanted him. She's like, no, I didn't want him. I really liked you a lot, but I was only 16 and I didn't want to have sex. I thought maybe eventually we could, but you wouldn't wait, so you left me. So then when the other guy asked me out, I wanted to try to make you jealous. And then when he came on to me to have sex, like, I probably should have stopped him, and I didn't. She's like, it wasn't rape, but I definitely really regret it, And all he takes away from that is, that's right. I dumped you. You didn't dump me. There's no problem. And he just walks away. Yeah. He just walks away super happy about the whole thing.
So he can take her off the list.
Yeah, he can take her off the list. Not at all worried about the emotional damage that he put her through. Means nothing to him.
It ruined her life. I mean, she said she couldn't even have sex during her college years.
Yeah.
Because she was so put off by that guy. Because she essentially was raped. I mean, but she
more or less
she just didn't fight hard enough to say no, I guess, is what she said.
Yeah. So what we've got here is we got Rob just skipping away from this thing, feeling completely happy and vindicated. That's right, I'm gonna look them all up and find them out. And then you see some of his callousness too, because one of the girls he was with now, they didn't have a healthy relationship. Their whole relationship was based on the fact that they both been crushed and dumped, and then they found solace in each other until, irony of ironies, she dumps him for somebody else. But then when he finds her, she's not in a relationship anymore, and you see her life has really spiraled, and she's really sad, and she's talking about medications and stuff. And he thinks he's the good guy here because he's like, I could have had sex with her, but I didn't. Well, yeah, but still, you could at least be some sort of emotional support. She's still happy to see you, and it's clear. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I'll call you. That he's not going to call her. It's like, okay, she's an emotional wreck. Get the hell away from that.
This is really Taylor, right?
Yes. So once again, he's not sympathetic at all. So it's hard to root for him exactly.
I did not root for him at all. He was very, very unlikable character.
Mm-hmm. And as I said, one of the things that bothers me most with his character is sometimes how I do see myself in him, and that makes me feel like I'm bad. I mean, there's a part where, and then there's a whole thing about one of his friends went to bat for him to talk to his latest girlfriend to sort of defend him. And then, when she comes back, and that's Joan Cusack, she's like, "You fucking asshole!" And he's like, then he addresses the audience. It's like, okay, there's at least 4 pieces of information that she might have. There's 4 pieces of information she might have gotten 2 or 3, or maybe even all 4 out of her, and this changed it. And one was, I did say that I was looking around for other people. I did cheat on her while she was pregnant, although I didn't know she was pregnant, and that. My actions led to her deciding to terminate the pregnancy. So, that's a lot to unpack. That's devastating.
He seemed to deal with it fairly well, though. He just glossed over all of that. I don't know, dude. The guy's an asshole, man. I whenever he was talking, I just felt like I should have been he should have been on a couch, and I should have been getting paid $100 an hour.
See, I don't think he's that screwed up, which is kind of what upsets me. Because I'm just like, I mean, I don't think I've mistreated people the same way he has, but I think I've had some of the same sort of emotional reactions and responses and feelings about that. He does say some very poignant things to me, I think, that nowadays I don't know people would really accept about relationships. And one is just sort of at least in heterosexual male-female relationships, a lot of the time it's kind of just like a war and a battle between 2 sides instead of an actual coming together. It's more like one side trying to beat the other. And I hate to say it, but that's kind of been my experience in a lot of ways. And you say, well, no surprise you're not married now. Okay, fine, fair enough.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's was some of the best advice I ever got before I got married is you have to oh shit, I'm trying to think of the word. your anyway, I'll come back to it. Anyway,
Okay.
Yeah, brain fart.
Yeah. Plus, he has some attitudes that I don't have. For instance, I would have zero interest in reconnecting and talking to any of my exes. I'm glad that they're out of my life. You know, I mean, I'm not glad like, oh, they're all bitches, because I don't feel that way at all. I just mean it would be too much for me to see them again. Even ones from years and years ago when I was young, I still don't want to see them. Side note,
sure.
Orc found one of them on Facebook because he was so curious about it.
Right.
And she's now married and has a kid. And he finally showed me a picture of her. And yeah, she's not nearly as pretty as she was. She was only 18 when I did her. I was 21. She was 18.
Yeah.
But she's not nearly as pretty yet. Or maybe having the kid did it to her. I don't know. But none of that is my point. My point is I felt a horrible sinking feeling. Even though I don't love her anymore, don't want her, and we haven't been together. And she's actually the only girlfriend I had that dumped me with compassion. So it's not even like I have really hard, and it was also not that long of a relationship. It was maybe six or 7 months, and yet still, I did not like seeing a picture of her at all. You know, so I'm very different from other people. I don't want to. I know they're out there and they're having their lives, and that's great, but I don't want to know anything about it at all. So he's very different from me in that he thinks, oh, this is a great way to make myself feel better. It wouldn't make me feel better at all. So there's some really great lines in the movie, though, even if you don't like him. He's talking about Charlie, the one he was obsessed with, the one that was way too good for him, supposedly. There's a really good line where he says, you know, some guys never got over Vietnam. I never got over Charlie. I have that kind of exact feeling about one or two girls in my past. Sure. And there's also a great thing when he he talks about like, and also how he felt like he was a fake and a phony being with her because she was too good for him. I felt exactly that. I've been with at least one girl who I felt was like way too attractive, way too that, all this other stuff. Like, why was she with me?
You're constantly worried about losing her.
Yeah. How was I holding this together and stuff? Yeah. And then there's a really funny line too when he gets to, you know, he was worried about him leaving her leaving him for like some coworker, and she's like, and then she left me for a coworker. Then it goes to him like out in the rain screaming. I just love it. Charlie, you fucking bitch. Let's work things out. That's funny.
Then the guy comes and gets her.
Even when things are most toxic, I've never ever called a girlfriend or ex-girlfriend a bitch. You know, I'm not going to say I've never lashed out in anger at them. I have, but I've never done that. And to me, there's no coming back from that either. And now I didn't mean to get a hold of this. My main problem with the movie is, as much as I think Nick Hornby is a good writer and everything, it's another movie that is trying to teach us that if someone breaks up with you, if you just keep harassing them and getting in their face, that's the right thing to do, and they'll eventually get back together. Because that is what happens in this movie. And I mean, that's just not real life, man. I never came close to that sort of stuff. And yet I've been treated by girlfriends like I was some sort of crazy stalker, and they were 2 seconds away from calling the cops on me. You know, you've got him calling 10 times a night and being outside and looking at them to the point that the guy, Tim Robbins, who we'll get to, actually comes down to the store to talk to him. And, you know, and at least at first the movie's showing it like that's not good behavior. That's erratic behavior. You can't do that. But then the movie rewards him for it. And the girlfriend acts in a way that, like, is so wishy-washy that I don't know why he'd even want her back. You don't dump somebody to have a relationship with somebody else only to still keep talking to him and saying, yeah, maybe there's a chance. And there's a part where he's really upset where he's like, where she says, oh, where he wants to know, of course, the guy thing, like, is he a better lover than me? And she says, well, actually, you haven't had sex yet. And that makes him really happy. And we're going to skip a part, and we're going to come back to that. But when she finally does have sex with him, she's like, I want to know that you still haven't had sex with him. She's like, I can't tell you that because we have.
Then he loses it.
Yeah, he loses it. Man, I lost my train of thought, though. I had something attached to that of why it was meaningful. Okay, let me back up.
Well, what he should have done.
Oh, okay, that's the other thing. Like, I can't relate personally to say I was in a relationship with a girl, we break up, she's in a relationship with some other guy, she's still talking to me, and then she tells me that she slept with him. At that point, I'm done. I feel, okay, you've made your emotional and physical commitment. I might still be really upset, but everybody has their own view of sex and how much it should mean emotionally. Everybody. Some people hold it so high that they don't have sex at all until they're married, and I'm nowhere near that. but I do have my own sort of compass for how much sex means. And in that one, again, I can't relate. If I found out she's like, okay, well, we had sex, I'd be like, okay, then it's over. You know, I'm not going to pursue you any further. You've made your choice. You're having sex with this guy. I would, if she said, now I'll come back to you, I'd be like, no, you had sex with that guy. Like, that's me. I'm not saying that's the rules for everybody. I'm just saying that's how I would feel. And my side note to that, again, which is weird, is before that, when he finds out at first, when she first tells him we haven't had sex yet, it makes him so happy. Like he says, I immediately went out and slept with blah, 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 the very attractive female musician. That was his way of celebrating that the girl he was in love with hadn't yet had sex with the guy she's with, was to go out and have meaningless sex with this pretty woman because he could. To me, that's super douchey. Yeah, that's funny. See, I had to look her up. Obviously, she's a name a lot of people wouldn't know. I never watched the show she was on.
We never watched Cosby Show, but you've seen a lot of her movies and stuff, probably.
She's not really in movies. She's in like 4 or 5 movies.
She's been in some.
Yeah, this is the only one I know.
But, well, yeah, she was in Cosby Show, then she left Cosby Show to go on to A Different World.
Yeah, I know.
Also,
wasn't that just a spin-off of the Cosby Show?
Yeah, the Cos himself put it out.
Yeah. For instance, there is a Cosby Show reference in this, which is pretty funny. And it's another thing, too, where Jack Black's character, Barry, takes him to task for the sweater he's wearing. He goes, Cosby sweater!
Oh, shit.
And throughout the I don't know if I can't remember if it was part of the character in the book, but man, it has nothing to do with the time period really, because I mean I remember clothes from that time period. Every shirt that he wears is ugly as hell. He just wears ugly shirt after ugly shirt, scene after scene. It's John Cusack putting on, it's John Cusack putting on another god awful eyesore. You know me, I'm not exactly a fashion guy, but they're ugly shirts. Every scene, he's wearing another goddamn ugly shirt.
This is the 90s clothes we're talking about.
Yeah.
But, when it flashes back, he's always wearing, like, some cool, like, leather jacket with patches on it and stuff, like, punk style.
Well, like he said, when he was talking about hanging with Charlie, they show them walking together, and he's wearing that jacket and tight jeans and stuff. And I mean, you get it there. Like he said, he was just trying to maintain an image. He was trying to raise her level of cool because she thought she was so awesome and cool and stuff. So that made a certain amount of sense. Yeah. But now it's like he doesn't care about that anymore, which is good, but I don't know. It's not a big deal. I was just fascinated that every time he changes clothes, they were almost worse than the last time. I just always thought he was wearing really terrible clothes.
I've got some news for him. She is out of his league. Yeah. Yeah.
But he managed to have her for a while, so good for him.
That's Catherine Zeta-Jones right there.
Yeah. And that's the only one that's the only one I feel good about. When he revisits her, and she's still not married, and she has all these jet-setting friends, and they're la 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 and stuff. And like he said, now that he's not in a relationship with her, he can sort of see her for what she really is. And he's just like, it's all bullshit.
Yeah, yeah.
She doesn't actually listen to anybody. She just says a bunch of cliches and stuff. She talks shit the whole time, and nobody calls her on it because they all think she's so cool. And he's just like, I couldn't see it when I was with her, but now I can see it. And that's the only revisiting of a girlfriend that, like, to me, I'm like, yeah, that's good. The other, I was just like, all you did was, like, add further insult to injury with these women. But with Charlie, yeah, she's she knows what she is, too. She's a hot girl that knows she's hot, right?
She's vapid. I mean, it's like, I don't know, she's like what I see a lot of people, like, on this Instagram fame, I feel like they're like, 'cause I've met people like that, that are just complete bullshit head to toe,
Yeah.
Like,
because I mean, as much as I say, like, I mean, I hate to be a mean and elitist about it, but like, I don't really have much time in my life for like, stupid people or, like if you don't read any books and you don't know anything and all you care about is like, I don't know, reality TV and stuff like that, then I don't really have any interest. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. I don't really like you, but there is still a bad flip side to it. She's a fairly intelligent woman. But again, it's all superficial stuff. Mm-hmm. None of it is, it's only to give the effect. It's like a pseudo-intellectualism. And I'm sure some people watching are like, that's you, Cole. You're a pseudo-intellectual. You're just on here with your fancy words to impress everybody, but you probably don't know anything. You're Brian Griffin. No, I'm not.
She knows enough to sound like she knows.
Mm-hmm.
She knows what she's talking about.
Right. But anyway,
exactly
so
what you're saying, yeah.
So that was the one interaction that I was like, yeah, that was actually good. But the other ones is just like, all you've done is go back for your selfish reasons, and you've actually caused even more problems by revisiting these people who are at first like even kind of happy to see you.
She even calls him out on the reason why he's there, like because she says the other guy called her a few months ago.
Yeah.
She's like, are you going through this like weird phase where you're trying to figure out what's going on?
He denies it at first, and then he does admit it. But in the admitting it, he realizes, you know, I'm still not as bad as you. Well, maybe you are, but at least you're bad in a different way, I guess. You know. Oh, another really good line from the beginning that I like a lot is when the current girlfriend first leaves, and he yells out the window, "If you really wanted to screw me up, you should have gotten to me earlier."
Yeah,
which is something I
pretty funny.
Can super relate to, because yeah, I mean, I'll always be an emotionally vulnerable person, but I'd like to think now that I'm a bit older and more experienced, I'm not as emotionally vulnerable as I was in my early relationships, where I fell into every sort of trap, made every sort of mistake, and every time there was a hard way of doing things, I always did it that way instead of the easy, simple way. So anyway, so that line, I like that line a lot too. It's probably something I can maybe use in the future on my next breakup.
The current girlfriend is Laura, played by a Danish actress.
Yeah,
She
looks a lot like somebody, but she's not.
She's not. Yeah, but I thought so too.
She looks kind of Uma Thurman-ish. She looks kind of like somebody else too, but she's not.
I knew she had an odd accent, and
yeah,
man, let me talk about this. Her hair just for a second. It looks like a blind person cut her hair because she has no bangs right here, but it's long on the sides. It's
really weird.
Fucked up. It's not good.
She looks better in the Flash. I didn't like her either too, and it's funny that I like the movie so much because again, all these people seem so unlikable, but I don't know. Again, I guess it's just the way it's told and the style is what I relate to and respond to positively because I'm right on your side for this too. Because the other thing is like I don't know why she's worth fighting for or keeping.
I think that's the whole point of the film. He doesn't know what he wants, and he's just looking to settle because he's tired of wanting the thing that doesn't exist, the dream girl, I guess.
Yeah, that's sort of his epiphany. His epiphany is I should just settle. Because his epiphany is I would never in both the book and the movie is like I would never what is it? His fear of commitment comes from a fear of death, which is the realization he makes when her father dies. Is the thing that kept him for always trying to pursue new women and move on to the next thing and keep his options open, as he said, is suicide. So, on the one hand, it's a good epiphany, but like you said, it does result in sort of, okay, well, then just settle.
Because, initially you think he's going to pursue a relationship with this, music writer who, that's Natasha Wagner. She's actually Natalie Wood's daughter.
Wait, who's that?
The music writer girl that he makes the mixtape for.
Oh no, I didn't think that. The one that said the reviews and stuff.
She saw him DJ and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't think they were going to hit it off?
No, by then he'd actually gotten back together with.
Right, but I just assumed it was just the endless pattern of him doing that to himself.
Well, I think it was trying to show us that he'd broken out of it because nothing came of it. And the other thing was, like, he's like, okay, now I'm going to make a mixtape. And that's the other thing from back in the day, right? She asked him about his 5 favorite records, which is, would make his head explode because he's doing 5 this, 5 that, subcategories and stuff. Just saying 5 favorite is, insane to somebody like him or me. I'd be like, 5 favorite. How about 5 favorite from 1993? How about 5 favorite by R&B within, a certain time? I'm always making subcategories and stuff like that. Yeah. Don't just say 5 favorite or I'll die.
It's too broad.
Right? So anyway, so she asked him that, and he goes, you know what? I'll make you a tape, which he's done many times. And he's about to tell the audience, because this is, again, now it's so easy, right? Now we can just make playlists with songs.
I don't think people do it anymore. I don't think
we can just drag and drop. That's too bad because now it's super easy. Now you can just drag and drop and make your playlist. And actually, I want to make a playlist for you because I was thinking about I wanted to send you a playlist of Canadian song from the 90s that cool. I kind of grew up on that you wouldn't miss. I'm kind of working on that, trying to figure out a way to do that. But anyway, what I'm saying is nowadays that's infinitely easier. What he's doing there is he's taking his various CDs or records and playing them and then converting them to a tape. And he's talking about that. And it's funny, too, and nobody has to do that anymore. But I can remember I did that a few times. I didn't do that a bunch of times. But I did do that a few times. I went through the effort. And it's funny. He's addressing the audience again, saying, like, all the do's and don'ts and things you want to do. And then he just takes the tape and goes, when is this going to stop? because he's kind of realized that he's kind of gone overboard with all.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
and it's also tied up to the woman thing. It's part of one of the reasons why he probably doesn't wind up pursuing this woman. It's like,
right,
okay,
exactly.
this is part of the stopping, right? You know,
that's what he yells out. When does this stop? You know?
Yeah, when is this going to stop?
Laura says, "What?" She walks in and asks what he's talking about. Who's that tape for?
Yeah, and then I guess you figure he never actually does do the tape.
His advice is you gotta hit hard and strong with the first song to get people on board.
Sure.
And then you got to top yourself with the next song.
Yeah. No, I mean I feel that too. It's kind of like if you're a band playing a live set, like how you decide the order of your songs and stuff.
Yeah.
I always think if I was in a band, I would think, the first song has to really grab people, but the second song has to be even better. And you probably want your absolute best song right in the middle. If you have a song that you think is the best, that should be in the middle. And then maybe your third best song should be your last.
You put your power ballad at like number 3.
Yeah. And then there's the other things about the flow, right? You know, your power ballad, right. your fast rocker, right. Your slowed down acoustic thing. Yeah, sure. So I think anybody that even, is remotely interested in music has their own ideas and opinions about that for sure. Yeah,
it's really sad though. I feel like it's kind of like music's not appreciated the way it used to be. I mean, even 10 years ago, because of the internet and the ease of finding it. I mean, do you feel that way?
Yes. And also, like I said, I despair that even though albums still come out, they're not really consumed the same way. I'm a big fan of the album, of music made at a certain time together that's supposed to fit together and maybe even have a sort of, it doesn't have to be high concept like a theme, but this album by this brand stands out from this other album they did later on. There's a different, nowadays, even though albums still come out, people don't really celebrate albums. It's just about grabbing songs one by one on iTunes or whatever. And
it's like now a new album comes out and it's like immediately on Spotify or, whatever your streaming service. And you can stream the whole damn thing, with commercials and stuff, which is, I mean, that's a good thing. Yeah. But it's like, it's, I guess, harder for bands to make a living at that, to actually make a career out of being a musician.
Yeah.
Because, there's not as many. I mean, hell, there was so many bands like in the 90s and stuff that, toured around and, had put out albums all the time that, never would make it now just because there's no money in it.
No. Musicians still make a lot of money. It's just different ways, I guess.
Well, if you look at, even big bands, like now they're still touring, but their ticket prices are like $200 each.
I know, and that's really sad.
It's ridiculous.
And in a way, you sort of get it because nobody's buying the albums.
Right. They've got to recoup they've got to make money somehow.
Mm-hmm. And,
so Mick Jagger's going to go out there until he's a fucking skeleton.
Oh yeah, well I don't respect that. I don't respect at all bands that have already made their money doing it. I'm like, what are you doing at this point? Yeah, the ticket price thing is something that really bothers me. A couple of years ago, Rush came here, and like tickets were like over $100, and I was like, you know what? I always think highly of the guys at Rush, but there's no way you guys don't know what your ticket prices are. It's not like it is true. It all started with the whole Pearl Jam thing, right? Pearl Jam didn't actually know in the 90s what Ticketmaster was doing with their prices. I don't remember how they found out, if a fan told them or what, but when they found out, they were upset and they changed it. They were lucky, and and to this day, Pearl Jam, as far as I know, continues to have fairly affordable, I think in the $25 to $50 range tickets, and other bands have followed suit, but a lot of hadn't, and that made me really sort of lose some respect for Rush, because I'm just thinking, I know you guys worked super hard. Rush, never broke up. They tore like mad, and it took them a long time to break through. I mean, they were not radio friendly. They were off the beaten path. They were a prog band. They had to do it the old-fashioned way, the hard, slogging it out, winning fans. But still, in the last 15 years at least, they've broken through. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're a big deal. People know Rush, and yet now it's like they're cashing in on it, and I don't like it.
Well, I mean, they're known for putting on a really good live show too.
Sure. So I'm not saying like you're going to feel gypped by their show exactly. I'm just saying it's still a lot. It's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. I agree.
It's a lot of money for one night.
I mean, if you're going to pay $100, I would pay $100 for Rush, or a band of that caliber.
I would if I knew I wasn't going to be like standing in the back row somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm so used to just being like where I could basically put my hands on the stage that I don't even know what it's like to be far from You know, I don't do that. Like when bands come and they play they play the hockey rink, I don't go. I'm like,
Really?
no,
You don't?
that arena stuff at all.
Is it you just sit down in the stadium seats?
Well, I mean, I guess that's what they do. I don't do it.
Okay.
I go to club shows and stuff where I can stand and be right there, and
Yeah.
where there is no assigned seating. You know,
Yeah.
I don't do assigned seating. I've had to a few times in my younger days, and usually I've been part of a crowd that just rebelled against it. We sat in our assigned seats. The band comes on, then we all just stand up and rush the stage.
Uh-huh.
You know, but in some places you can't get away with that anymore.
Tool came here like 2 years ago, or not here, but it was about 4 hours away from where I am.
Yeah.
And Tool's one of my all-time favorite bands. I've never seen them live.
I saw A Perfect Circle
Oh, you did?
in 2000.
But tickets were, I think $80 was the cheapest ticket they had, and it was in the absolute nosebleed of an arena, like you're saying.
Yeah. See, I need the intimacy. I need to be close. If I'm far away, I might as well be listening to it on CD.
I almost did it, but they like sold out immediately. Like,
yeah, they're big. They're still big. Got to give them credit.
I mean, I've been a fan of Tool since like '92, so
yeah.
You know, I'm not like a fair weather type person, but yeah, that's a shame. I'll probably never get a chance to see him again.
Yeah. On the same note, sort of, and back to the movie, kind of talking about music snobs. I know I very much am one too, not to the degree that Barry and Dick is, and we should say for the sake of letting people know, is like, while Barry's the aggressive snob, Dick is still a snob. He's just not an in-your-face about it way. He's more subtle and stuff. Although at least he does try to help people out. You'll often see Barry just ignore people that need his help just so he can do something else or whatever. And there is a great part too where Barry's leading this guy around the store, telling him about these bands he hasn't heard of, and he's saying, "Oh man, like you need this," and he's just like adding all these records. It's like, because again, it's part of like that the image that hipsters have, like. You aren't anybody if you don't have this music and you're not into it, right? And he's just like, I'm embarrassed for you if you don't even know that. Like, don't tell anybody. Like,
you don't have Blonde on Blonde. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, Blonde on Blonde is talking about it. By the way, probably the biggest influence this movie had me on music-wise was it made me seek out Echo and the Bunnymen because I was sort of enchanted by the way they talked about it. So that's how I found out about Echo and the Bunnymen. And that was it. Blonde on Blonde. He's the one that said, like, because that was one of her things. He said, you're looking for your Bunnymen. Well, this band, I think it was Blonde on Blonde, like picked up where they left off. I don't know if that was Blonde on Blonde or not. But
I think it was the one right before that.
Okay, it was another one. And you get a few of the, trendy '90s indie type bands. They're mentioned Stereolab, the Beta Band. To the point that they're trying to show us the Beta Band is so awesome that when they play their music, everybody in the store starts going.
Yeah. He said I'm about to sell, 4 copies of this album or something?
Yeah. And it seems to work. And it's like, it works on you gullible hipsters. I don't know. I didn't think it was that great of a song, but what do I know?
Yeah. Well, it was, decent.
It was decent, sure.
I wouldn't buy the album.
Yeah.
And the whole spiel that Dick goes on about Green Day.
Yeah,
The Flash, and what was the other band he mentioned?
Stiff Little Fingers. He said, their influence. Stiff Little Fingers are real. They're a punk band from actually Ireland that formed in 1977, and they're still together, even though they're not still together. They're still a band. Only one guy is still part of the band. Like a lot of bands, they've had rotating membership and stuff, but they're still around. But yeah, that was his little obscure nugget for her. Is like a lot of people know the Green Day was influenced by the Clash, but the other band was this band people don't know about. But this is the one instance where he's actually using his knowledge to help somebody and not impress them or intimidate them, which is usually what they do with their knowledge. They tell each other their lists so they can try to one up each other with their knowledge, and they just are very snobbish with their customers. And they're even called out. That black guy that comes in. He refuses to sell. Well, there's this guy that keeps coming in to buy a record. He's like, well, how much? He's like, you know what? I'm not going to sell it this week. He's like, that's what you said last week. And as soon as he leaves, the black guy who's their friend is just like, I'll buy it. He's like, sold. And he's just like, see, why would you sell it to me and not him? You guys are snobs. He's like, you feel like you're unappreciated scholars or whatever, like people who are, geniuses, whatever. So you just take it out on everybody who lives less than you. And they're like, yeah. Because they don't see that it's wrong. They think it's justified. They're like, yeah, that's what we do. That's what you're supposed to do, right? If you know something about if you know more about something than other people, you lord it over them, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Make them feel insecure, make yourself feel big, you know? But anyway, I got way off track there. And as much as, again, we can step back and objectively say how that's bad or wrong, I know I still am guilty of it about certain things. For instance, about 7 or 8 years ago, I remember I was briefly in Sydney, and I was hanging out with some of my friends that I don't see that much, and they were talking about how the Rolling Stones were going to play a concert in Moncton. You know, Moncton's not even in Nova Scotia, but, you know, it's about a 4.5 hour drive from here in Halifax. So, you know, it's a doable trip. And some of them I think were going to go and stuff like that. And I could just remember in the aftermath of that, not them specifically, but some of the people that they met there or knew. I remember girls talking, and I also remember like media coverage where they were like talking. I remember the media talking to like these two like, you know, blonde girls in their early 20s talking about how great the Stones are. And, you know, the snob in me just wants to go, name one of their albums. Name just one. Just name one of their albums, little girl. Because I bet you all you know is like the hits that you hear on the oldies radio station, or when every once in a while when Mick shows up on SNL to play some of the old classics. I bet you don't even know one fucking album. You know, that all rises up in me. And I'm like, where's that come from? But it's true. So, I mean, I do have that too a little bit. I am a bit of a snob in that I don't like fair weather fans. I feel like I'm a real fan. I know the music, you know.
Right.
That is in me, and I can't deny it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, you know, I kind of feel this way with Orc about video games. It's like I'm always afraid of being called a noob, but doesn't everyone have to start as a noob?
Sure.
Like, to become a real fan, don't you have to, or a real gamer, don't you have to be a noob first at the game?
I don't want to turn this into attack on Orc, but man, Orc, you are snobby when it comes to this sort of thing. You'll often talk about why people are stupid because they like this game, you know, because that's not a good game. That's a game you don't like, so those people suck. You know, I don't know. That's kind of... It's kind of high and mighty, really.
Yeah. Like, it's kind of the same type thing. It's like, oh, man, you don't know this band? Get the fuck out of here. Like, why don't you try to teach these people something instead of...
Exactly. Know, and I mean, I went through that in that time period, like in the 90s. Like you, it was when I was most interested in music. I was kind of a sponge. I always wanted to know new bands and new things and stuff like that. And it was great. Life. There was a lot of great music being produced.
Like, from probably 13 to early 20s, like that was all I cared about.
Yeah, I mean, all my T-shirts were band T-shirts. Mm-hmm. You know, but I think I really did help people out more than I did that, because I would often try to expose people to other music, and as I said, I did make a few burnt CDs and stuff for people in those times and stuff like that. And
oh yeah,
when we were talking the other day on another show, we were talking about like the heyday of Napster. Like, oh, I love Napster because it wasn't because I could, you know, steal the music from the artist off their albums. Because I mean, sure, I did a little of that like everybody, but most of the music I sought out was like, you know, unreleased material or a bootleg, a live thing, you know, something you couldn't buy in the store. That's what I really liked about Napster, was that people were making that available. And I really enjoyed that. And, you know, to this day, I feel bad that I lost so many great recordings. Like, they're gone. I don't have them anymore. They were on, you know, some old computer.
You know, the people bitched about Napster, you know, the artist, but go on YouTube right now. You could probably find any song you want that some jackalope has, you know, uploaded. You know, it's, you know, they're not getting any money off of it, the band.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing, really. Just different format.
Pretty much. And it's not like people even, and that's the other thing, we've given rise to a new generation that doesn't care about owning stuff.
They don't care about it at all. And I think there's a level of appreciation there that they don't have. It's like,
because they just like streaming stuff. They like having stuff available to them. But again, it's not not permanent.
Nothing means anything. It's just in and out, in and out, in and out, you know. It's like you know, waiting for an album to drop. Oh man, that album comes out in a month. Mm-hmm. Can't wait. Or, you know, just the aspect of, you know, waiting for like cartoons to come on Saturday morning, or having to sit through.
We were like the last generation that had anticipation for things.
It's just anticipation. That's it. And
waiting for a show to come on a certain day, waiting for an album to come out, things like that. I mean, I do love this world of instant gratification. That's true. It's great, but I mean, some things do truly get lost.
It's
like that, like the end, knowing how great it was to wait
like,
for something.
I just feel like it made it that much better when you actually got to see it, you know? Like, you know, Jurassic Park, oh, it's going to come out and so. You knew about it months ahead of time. You'd already read the book, you know, and then, you know, you go see it and it's just, you know, amazing.
Yeah. Now Jurassic Park, I'd even go see the last one because I don't care.
It's like,
I don't care.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how Jurassic World, now I'm going on a tangent here, but we'll talk about Jurassic World for a second. Jurassic World almost seems to suggest that same thought to its audience. Like, Jurassic World is almost like saying, yes, we agree the original was better. And wasn't stuff better back then. Because first you have all the callbacks to the original that it makes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy in the shirt, and of course, finding the old place. The whole idea of the Indominus Rex is just like, oh, look, it's just like newfangled, just like this new movies nowadays. It's thrown together. It looks more expensive and flashy, and people are into it. But the old standard, the T-Rex from the T-Rex is the one that brings it down.
Right.
Although it's the Jaws, so now we get Spielberg's career put into this. It's the Jaws thing that fully takes it out.
That was badass. I like that ending, but
yeah, sure. So there's a few times where I feel like the movies actually are just pointing out, like, yeah, things, you know, like the blockbusters aren't what they used to. It almost feels like what Jurassic World is saying to us. It's like, we admit it, you know, they're not as good.
You know,
and here's why.
I saw it in the theater, you know, and I liked it a lot. And then,
I liked it at the time, and then one of those movies. The more you think about it, you see it again. Like, you see all the problems.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like it's okay, I guess.
Lazy writing was a big part of it, and
second film wasn't bad though. Lost World, More Lost, or
something Kingdom, Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom. That sounds good.
See, I didn't even bother with it. I mean, I will eventually, but that was not a priority to me. It was a priority to see Jurassic World because I was like, maybe, you know, there's been a big gap. Like, I didn't like either of the old sequels, but there's been a long time that you know, it's a clean slate. And then I was just like, okay, but now, like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll eventually see it.
I mean, really, are we living in a world where all that shit can go down in the first 3 movies? And they're still gonna do it again. I mean, really? Like, you're not only that, but you're gonna like give them all sorts of powers and abilities and shit. Like, what do you?
I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised because that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean it's the Indoraptor instead of the Indominus Rex. They get DNA from the Indominus Rex and make an Indoraptor, which is even better. And they try to train it well,
we brought back animals, you know, that died out millions of years ago, but we're already bored of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll just make, you know, different concoctions.
People don't give a shit about dinosaurs anymore. We got to make them bigger and better somehow.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was the whole purpose of the first film, or Jurassic World.
Jurassic World, yeah.
Yeah. It's bad writing, really, is what it boils down to. I was fine with what's his name, Star Blaster or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
the main guy.
Oh,
Chris something.
His character doesn't even have any point in the first movie when you think about it. Like, if you remove him from the movie, almost nothing's lost. And his idea of like training raptors is kind of pointless too. Like, what's it for?
To militarize it.
Except he didn't know that, supposedly. Like, they tricked him into doing it. Like, he just thought, oh, it's for fun. Is that what he thought? It's for fun? Like, he's just this idiot that's just like, I just like working with the raptors.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I guess they're gonna pay you a salary for that, sure.
Yeah.
Here you mess around with you mess around with our super expensive attractions. You mess around with them and whatever. And, you know, maybe for the Indominus Rex escaping, maybe don't make a door it can get through. Is there any reason to have a door it can get through?
Why give it the ability to camouflage? Like, why?
Yeah. Well, they almost make it sound like that's by accident, like they didn't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like we gave it all these powers to better escape us.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Anyway, back to music. You know, there's a few movies that make a good point about the emotional connection we have to music, and I think this is one of them. Obviously, Empire Records is another one of those not as deep. And probably the deepest for me is Almost Famous. And there's a really great line, we were talking about the fandom and people that care. There's a really great line about fandom in Almost Famous said by the Penny Lane character when she says, you have a kid or whatever, you have a person and they're lonely and there's like this little piece of music and they love it so much and it just means everything to them and stuff that it sort of determines it's the most important thing to them in their life and stuff. And, I can sort of relate to that. And it's like that, especially when you think of your growing up as sort of, I wasn't a lonely kid. I had friends, but I still had, everybody has their angsty moments and the moments where they feel alone or misunderstood and all that. And the one thing you have is your music. Your music is there. Just like, yeah, this is how I feel. Or this makes me feel better. And stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, this movie does end with sort of a nice celebration of music. You have Barry's band that he'd always talked for years about putting together. His band is finally put together, and they're so expecting to be awful, and it turns out, oh, Barry actually has like singing talent. He's pretty good, and it's the big reveal, which is kind of funny.
I think he does a great job too.
Oh yeah, for sure. As I said, I think this movie was sort of a springboard for Jack Black. He always had little bit roles here and there in movies, but this is the first time where we got to see what Jack Black brings, what he can do. And then later on, we would see he'd have starring roles, or it was all about him doing those things. This movie, I think, was really the showcase for that, even though he's not the main character.
Yeah. Earlier, Ork had mentioned Saving Silverman. Do you remember that one?
I really like that movie, and it makes me sad. Like, when you think about comedic duos, like, obviously, Chris Farley died. Otherwise, he probably would have made a couple more movies with David Spade. I always think it's a shame. Not that Saving Silverman was some classic. It's not. But it seems like a shame that Jack Black and Zach, is it Zach?
Galifianakis. No,
I had his name and I lost it.
Shit. I know you're talking about.
But anyway, the other guy in that movie, he's also like in Joyride and stuff.
Yeah.
Steve Zahn.
That's it.
I thought he and Steve Zahn really had great comedic chemistry.
I did too.
And I think it's a shame that never got explored in any other movies. They could still do it. They're not too old. They could still do a good comedy together. I have no idea if I'm the only person that felt that way and nobody in Hollywood did. Again, that movie is not amazing. It's quite stupid, but it has some really great moments. And I think the best moments are those two, like as the comedic relief together. Yeah. Steve Zahn. I really feel like that's a shame. So that's a good catch, Ork, because I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1 year after this movie. And again, it was before Jack Black was a star. He's not the star in that movie. Jason Biggs is the star, if you can believe it. Holy shit. What a world we live in, where people like Jason Biggs and who's the other one more recently, Justin Long, guys like that. Like, why are they leading guys? Like, what the hell? But anyway, yeah, another great line too is when he's talking to his mom calls him right after the breakup, and he's talking to his mom, and she's saying how great it is that he has her and stuff, and he's like, mom, like she just left. He's like, what? She's like, why? And he's like, the same reason they all did. Then she starts like flipping out on him. She's like, oh, they all leave. And she's really digging into him as his failure at maintaining a relationship. And he's just like, oh, shut up, mom. He's like, I was like, I totally agree with him too. Yeah. Like, you want support from your mother. Like, thank God my mom never turned on me when I'd be like, when I had to like tell her, she'd be like, what's her name? I'd be like, actually, we broke up. At least my mom never went like, again. And she totally could have. She could have been totally justified at this point in my life to be like, oh, you lost another one.
When you're swimming in denial. Like,
yeah, but she doesn't. So, yeah.
Right. That's true. And maybe that's what he needed, though.
Yeah, I mean, in a way. But again, I just think it's another great line. He's just like, shut up, mom. He's like, oh, that's some cold shit. And he's got it right.
But
so there's two little bits of foreshadowing in the movie. One is not that important. One is this is something that's actually added to the movie that's not in the book. Is you have these skater punks that hang out outside the store, and a couple of them try to shoplift because every record store needs a good shoplifting scene. It's not nearly as good as the one Empire Records. That's the good one. But anyway, where he runs out and they catch up to the guys and they're gonna call the cops and they're like, no, we'll give it back. And he's like, I think you have more. And one of the things he has is guide to home recording. So that's some foreshadowing that they're in a band and they're trying to make an album. Because one of the things to help him break out of his shitty life and do something, he's like, I'm going to start a label. And he's like, I'm going to sign you guys. We're going to release. Because that's how the movie ends, with their sort of like record release party on his new album. But anyway, the other piece of foreshadowing is much bigger and more important. It's a Chekhov's gun type situation. Whereas like early in the movie, after Laura has left, Laura's mother calls and leaves a message on the answering machine, and she mentions that her father's angina is acting up again. Skip to the final act, and her father has died from it. And once again, this is where I kind of get a little annoyed at Nick Hornby. One, you're already doing the plot where you're saying, yeah, this is how relationships work. If they break up with you, if you just keep getting in their face and calling them up and doing all the things that would actually get you arrested or, you know, beaten up or, you know, restraining order in real life, that's going to reward you. And again, she's so understanding about it. I've never had a girl be that understanding about anything like a tenth of that. I haven't had a girl be that compassionate and understanding. Because at one point when she says, when he's asking her about has she slept with, where she has to reveal that by this time, yes, I have slept with him. And he's like all upset. She's like, are you still there? He's like, I can come over. I can explain. I owe you that much at least. Whoa. I don't live in a world where a girl ever says I owe you that much. I have all these things where I'm like, at least you owe any explanation. At least you owe me this, that, you know. I mean, I get that we're breaking up, but I think, you know, as, you know, decency says you owe me this. No, in real life, they don't owe you shit. They do, but, you know, they don't feel that way, right? But yet he's getting this. So that's on the one hand. So that's the one thing. Nick Hornby, fuck you. Oh, yeah. Relationships work out. They're going to listen to you. They're going to hear you out. They're going to, I have to explain. Yeah, right. No, they dump you. They fucking dump you. Two, this might have worked out too. Hey, maybe if a girl dumped me and her father immediately died, I'd get her back in that way too. Mm-hmm. Because suddenly, she's going to dump you, but now her father dies. And so it's too soon for her to have a new relationship. Although in this movie, she does. But we'll say, you know, for the sake of in most things, they wouldn't. So who's she gonna fall back on and comfort? Well, the ex, and now she remembers all the good things about the ex, and now you're back together again. So fuck you, Nick Hornby. That, like, you know, narratively that big. I mean, you say it's a bad thing. It's the best thing that could have happened to him. Is her father dying? That helped him immediately. You know, if her father didn't die, they wouldn't have gotten to where they were. And they have this really odd part too, where she's like, I want to have sex, just, you know, so I feel something else, and he's just like, okay.
Which I absolutely wouldn't have done that. I don't care.
I would have been like, that's not healthy, man. I'd be like, I don't think it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's just convenient for her. I mean, he's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like random penis.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you're just being treated that way. It's like, oh, now you want me because of blah, blah, blah. But you don't really want me. And yet he's just like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it. And I also just think it's an awful taste. Yeah, you say you want to feel something else. But I just like, come on, man. I'm not saying, like, if you have a parent that dies, you need to wait a certain amount of time before you have sex. But you at least have to have sex for, like, normal reasons. Like, you're still in a relationship, okay, we'll have sex. But you would totally understand why they wouldn't be in the mood. And yet she's just like, I need to feel something else. So, yeah, let's get it on here. And he's just like, yeah. So, as much as I relate to the character, like I said, there's so many things I don't relate to him at all. And a lot of them have to do with sex. Like, he just does not view sex the way I do. And again, there's no right or wrong way. As I said, some people, sex is super important. They can only do it if it's in a really super serious relationship or maybe even marriage. Other people, you know, and then there's varying levels of how casual it can be. And I'm not even judging people that have super casual sex all the time. I'm just saying the way he juxtaposes casual sex with meaningful relationship sex blows my mind. As I said, I still can't believe that when he finds out, she's just like, I haven't slept with him yet. He's so thrilled. And he celebrates by going and having sex with somebody else just because he can. Also knowing that he has no chance with this woman relationship-wise. And then they get to talk about, and these are people that kind of really piss me off too, about like how sort of emotionally involved they both are. Because they both know the sex didn't mean anything.
Right.
But they both think, well, we should have it because it feels good. And again, I get that argument. I'm one of the people that's usually on the side of that argument. But sometimes I just feel like situations don't call for it and it's not right. And I'm thinking, you're working so hard to get your girlfriend back. You're so happy. You think you've won a victory. If you care about her that much, why are you going to go have a meaningless fuck with this woman? You know? And it's just because he can. Now, once again, we get to something that I can relate to. The flip side is when he flashes back because he says, how did I pull this off? And then he tells you about how he made it work. That is pretty true. And it's kind of my experience, at least, although I like to think that I don't put on an act just to have sex. I just feel like I have certain tools that I can use that help me. And that's what he's doing. And as he says, you know what matters to people? Things like movies and shows and music and stuff. if you have common ground, that's a big deal. And if so, and as I said, they're talking about stuff, and he's talking to her about The Prisoner. It's pretty funny. He's like, "Who starred in The Prisoner?" They're at the and Barry's like, "McGowan," because it's Patrick McGowan who was the star of The Prisoner and stuff. So he just says, yeah, like he didn't really have to seduce her. Just through the night, all he had to do was bounce off her as they talked about various, movies and music and stuff they liked, and it ended in them having sex. And that has kind of been my experience too sometimes, where I realized that was the best route to go. But again, I didn't do it just like because I was super creepy and nefarious. It's like, and this is where it's different, because he just said, I'm presenting to her, he said something like a character of like a certain kind of sensitive guy, but I might just under the surface have a certain amount of emotional depth lurking under the surface. And he says, I do this because I'm in a position to do so. See, that's where we differ. I do like to think I'm at least genuine, that I don't just like bullshit when I'm out with women just so they'll, get some sort of impression of me, just so maybe we can have sex. But I admit everybody has their tools, and you got to use them.
Right. Well, back to something else you were talking about. When he did have sex with the artist or the musician, Elisa Bonet, she says that sex is like a basic human function, or
she says it's a basic human right.
Basic human right, that's right. So he can kind of relate to that too, and he even questions her about it. But I mean, that's maybe kind of his out for cheating on his potential new. Right.
I've seen this sort of thing in other movies too, where you have like the attractive woman who has that sort of position. It's in Clerks too. What's her name? Rosario Dawson says it. Like she talks about like I think we're on the earth to like fuck as much as we can and stuff. But it's always a little bit annoying when it's an attractive woman giving that speech, because I'm just thinking that's because it's the easiest thing in the world for you. You are the apex. You're the top.
Right,
you are the desirable thing. Other people who are not on that level, it's just like, yeah, it's my basic human right. Good luck getting it.
Yeah.
And again, and this is kind of where we're at right now with the all the stuff Me Too and stuff like that. And they're saying we have to teach people, sex is not your right. It's a choice that two people make together. It's not you owe me. It's my right, and that's something that's become very toxic in the world. Is I guess, especially I hate to say it, but supposedly with males, like we've got like this whole sort of generation of males growing up, kind of thinking the other way. And I don't mean to say because the other generation was better. They're being taught by the older generation. You have a guy like Harvey Weinstein who's like way into his 50s that always had that mindset, like sex is my right. I'm gonna use what I have to get it. Very bad, very toxic. And stuff like that. So I always find it problematic when you have the pretty women in the movies espousing that sort of philosophy, because they're only looking at it from their point of view, which is simply, I'm the apex. I am the ultimate prize in sex. So I can have it pretty much on whatever terms I choose, whether it's a super attractive
with
guy,
whoever
I choose. Whereas with other people, your options are severely limited. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's all well and good for a woman, a super attractive, desirable woman, to have that sort of attitude, and we try to look at it like she's so evolved and smart, but not really, because guess what? If you weren't attractive, it'd be a lot harder for you to go forward with that attitude. So but yeah, so the movie says a lot of things about sex that I don't agree with, but most of the time I think sex is fluid, and that like most of the time I think it's a case by case thing. What's right for somebody might not be right for someone else. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It's only when we're getting into stuff like actual rape where it's like wrong, or I don't know, fucking a kid, the wrong type things. But I just mean, I don't know. Everybody has their own sort of attitudes and approach to sex and stuff, and we all have to sort of justify it to ourselves and other people at some point, I think.
Well, I mean, it even, you had mentioned this, before we even decided to do this film, about how he's, we found out that she was 16. He was pressuring her.
Yeah.
He said she wouldn't let me have my hand on or in, under the bra.
Yeah.
So he's really forcing himself on her pretty hard.
Yeah, he really was. Because she, it's one thing to attempt to, touch somebody somewhere and have them stop you.
Right.
If that's the end of it, that doesn't make you the worst person in the world. it means you misread, and okay, we'll go forward.
Right.
What makes you bad is if you immediately just try again.
And that's what he said, like what,
repeat,
like retreat and repeat or something like that.
Yeah, he said retreat and repeat, and he just said at one point, like, I was getting so bored, trying to get a feel on her bra that I just decided to try to get in between her legs, So he's really got that sort of not good at all mentality. Not a good thing for a young man to have. But again, it was typical. So,
I mean, I've never experienced anything like that before, but I've definitely seen it a lot in movies. Where guys do that. A lot.
Yeah. And on the other hand, once again, it seems like Nick Hornby is saying like perseverance pays off. Just keep going.
Right.
Not just in relationships, but in sex and in real life. No.
Well, especially today, yeah.
The women are not going to reward you, for saying, "Oh yeah, you knew better than I did." I kept saying no, but you knew what was right in the end. You kept going. Like, no, don't do that, people.
I mean, not only that it was okay, but it was kind of cheeky. He's kind of a character for doing it,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man,
But again, the movie does treat it properly when she confronts him, because she's just like, you know what, like you think I was tight? I was 16. I wasn't ready for sex. I might have wanted to have sex with you in the future, but I was 16 and I didn't want to. She's like, I would have, could have waited till college. And she's like, I didn't even have sex throughout college when everybody's having it because I was so put off by it because of what happened with the other guy right after you. So
that unfazed.
Oh, it means nothing to him. It means nothing to him.
It means nothing. Like,
he just walks away from it. The only thing he takes away from it is, that's right, I dumped her.
Nothing wrong there. That should, like...
He doesn't have, he doesn't reflect on it. He doesn't think about the damage he did to her.
Right.
He doesn't think that if that's still my approach, I need to change it. All he thinks is, hey, that's right, I dumped her. She didn't dump me. Everything's fine. I feel great. So he's quite an asshole. So even when he says later, I am a fucking asshole, it's still not good enough. You're just like, yeah, you are.
That's when I came. I was like, I do not like this guy when that happened. I mean, I already didn't like him before that, but really, that not good.
And yet I still like the movie. Even though I resent the fact that it ends so well for him, because as I said, that's bullshit. Oh yeah, she gets back together with him, and her father conveniently dies, and all this. And as I said, it's weird because there's a lot of things about him I relate to, and there's a lot of things that I find are so different from the way I would approach things or view things. And a lot of them sex, but not everything.
I almost feel like it would be a better movie if it just focused on the record store and didn't follow him around and his, crying about him being a whatever, striking out with women all the time.
I think that's why I like Empire Records more as a record store thing, because it's just it's about all the drama of the kids working at the record store, but the record store is still the heart of it. It's the crux, because at the end they put their stuff aside to save the record store. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that when I not to go on a big thing about Empire Records, and I know that obviously I have a certain amount of bias because of my age and stuff like that, and being such a typical 90s white kid who was into indie rock and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm just surprised that that movie doesn't have much of a good reputation. Like, it doesn't have good scores on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. Really? Most people dismiss Empire Records as just a forgettable chunk of the 90s. And I think it's really great. It's really quotable. It's really memorable. It has a lot of fun moments and things in it.
Oh, yeah. I like it a lot.
And, I mean, it has some drama and some stuff, and it's handled actually a lot, as you said, a lot better than in this movie, whereas, sometimes he makes the right choice, but other times he's way off, and it doesn't seem to matter. He doesn't seem to pay for his mistakes, or he only pays for them temporarily, and then he gets back. Yeah. So, yeah, there's all sorts of unevenness things about this movie that are unsatisfying. Because it feels like, he's learned from some mistakes, but he hasn't learned from others at all. It feels like he's being rewarded for terrible behavior. Stuff like that. And he often talk. And what's funny too is at the height of his hypocrisy, he'll talk about how he realizes that Barry and Dick are such snobs, and he calls them the musical moron twins. And I'm like, you're a snob because you think you're better than them. Yeah. You're not better than them.
Well, yeah, he never talks about them in a positive light in his narrated, his inner monologue.
Yeah, I mean, I get how they're kind of annoying the way they run the store and stuff, but they don't seem to have the deep psychological issues you do. We see Dick start a relationship with a young lady, and he's respectful and kind and decent to her. you know, which is a lot more than you are, you asshole, where you're spending the movie saying, here's the stuff I did to women. I don't feel bad about it. Here's a woman I can have sex with. I'm going to go do that now, you know.
But
like, he's kind of a psychopath.
But, I mean, they're his friends, too, is kind of what I was trying to say. And he just
they're the only friends he
has. Them. Yeah.
They're his only friends. And as I said, he's such a, like I said, he's such a hypocrite because he points out, like, the stuff they do. You're right, but you act like you're any different or you're better than them, and you're not. You're not at all.
They keep mentioning, you know, that they did this together, they did that together. You know, they saw this movie or whatever. It's like you obviously spend a lot of time with these people in your personal life outside of the record store.
Because nobody else can fucking stand you.
Right.
Probably. You know, that's what's kind of funny. Like, when he goes to see Charlie, and he actually says something that makes him sound pretty good, because, like, a lot of people in his position, when he's realizing that, you know, Charlie, what she says is bullshit, what he says about the people themselves there, he says, you know, they're not bad people. Like, he realizes that. You would almost think somebody like he'd be just like, oh, they're a bunch of phonies and fakes and bullshit. But he doesn't say that. He says, like, I realize, you know, they're not bad people. They're okay. But it's Charlie. She, you know, she's the real fake here. And, you know, I was under her spell, which, again, is something I can relate to. I know what it's like to date a girl that feels like she's out of your league, and you're constantly questioning yourself and worried about it. And she's on a pedestal, and everything she does is so cool and stuff. There's some of my favorite songs are about that. Kate by Ben Folds 5 is kind of about that, except that's different because that's not about being in relationships, just about wanting. It's about being in love with a girl who you think is way too cool. Because that's the other thing too, right? Like, we often think about, like, the basics of, like, wanting somebody. Oh, they're warm and they're attractive and they're nice to people, but we look up to people we think are cool too. Like, yeah. And of course, Underwhelmed by Sloan, which will probably be on the playlist I give you, which is, again, about wanting being in love with a girl that you just think is so cool and stuff. There's a lot of really good lines in that song. Of course, the end line is the best. I think my love for her makes me miss the point, which I think is something that a lot of guys or girls could relate to, where you have somebody like that in your life where you're just blinded to everything else because you're just so focused on this person, again, who you're putting on a pedestal and thinking is so wonderful. I'm trying to think of what's else going on. Anything that any other, like, moments in the movie that are worth bringing up?
The band, the Skater Punks.
Yeah.
Create is
Kinky Wizards.
Kinky Wizards, yeah.
I like how they're like, it's really fucking good. It doesn't sound good at all. It sounds like crap to me.
Well, I mean, I guess that kind of yeah, they're snobs, but I guess they know good stuff when they hear it. Even though it didn't really sound good to me either.
Yeah, it didn't sound. But I mean, as you said, like, it's one of the times where, like, they realize their snobbery can't protect them because
it's really good.
Yeah, because it's just like, I hate to admit this. Like, I don't want to admit that just those idiots out there make music that I think is good, but it's good. So it's kind of funny because when he comes in, they're just like staring at each other, like not saying anything. It's like it's really good.
He goes and tells them, he's like, your music's really good. And they're like, we know. We made it. Oh, man.
Yeah. And I mean, that would probably be my reaction, though, too. I'd be like, you think I wasn't trying? I was trying my best, damn it. No, we just thought we put out some shit. You know? And
when Jack Black gets together with Tommy Wiseau and creates that band, Sonic, what is it? Sonic Death?
It's going to be Sonic Death Monkey. Yeah. And then they said, we considered the name Kathleen Turner Overdrive. And he said, but tonight, what is it? It's like Barry and like something like the Funk Five.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. So that they could do Let's Get It On by Barry White. And they do a really great rendition of it.
Yeah. Kind of an odd choice. They're really all over the place with the music choices.
Yeah, well, it's also to show, like, their vast knowledge,
right?
Like, they don't just know one genre; they're all over the place. You know, they're talking about the Righteous Brothers.
He's talking about his funeral, and he wants like a song by Aretha Franklin or
yeah,
one by Gladys
Knight.
Gladys Knight. But yeah, I wanted to tell you. Last night I saw How to Talk to Girls at Parties.
Oh, I'm dying to see that.
I'll just let you see what you think about it. I didn't dislike it, but
well, I like the story, so
yeah.
I mean, I assume the movie can't fuck it up too badly.
I want to ask you how closely it played to that.
Well, I'll have to find out because I've been dying to see that. It's not playing anywhere. As I said, I'm on Neil Gaiman's Twitter feed, so like forever, I keep getting people saying, "Oh, This movie's so great" and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you don't live where I live. I don't get to see it.
But it was really odd because Elle Fanning and Nicole Kidman are in it, and they were in Beguiled. I
don't know what that is.
17? I think I may have been 2017 they were in that.
Don't know it.
Which I really like that film. But I was going to ask you, what would be like a good Neil Gaiman like starting book to read?
Okay, so I'm a massive Neil Gaiman fan, and I own a lot of his books. But I'm going to admit right now that I've always preferred his comics.
Okay.
I like all the books of his I've read. I've liked, but at least half of them. But when I finally read them, I was always a little disappointed. People fucking love American Gods, and they love Neverwhere. I like them fine, but I don't love them. I don't know where they're finding this oomph in it. Like, I don't have it. I think they're both good and stuff. But, I mean, you could just really start where he started and just read the Sandman comic book, because that is fucking good. Actually, it's funny. I've been the only way I ever owned it is in the massive annotated editions.
Wow.
Well, they're so big because they have the annotations on the sides, because they're just so packed with references. So this is volume 2. I don't have the 3rd volume yet. So I got them here in the black and white with with all those notes on the side. See all those notes. There's the comics in the middle. It's super wide. The comics in the middle. The black is like all the extra notes and stuff. Because it's the annotated Sandman. Because I mean, there's nothing he can't do. He can write pretty much everything. But I mean, my favorite stuff by him is his comics, and actually like my favorite novel of his might even not be a novel. It might just be like Coraline. Like I like Coraline, which is more of a kid's.
Oh, I didn't realize he did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think Coraline is. I like that more than so far. I haven't read all of his novels yet, and again, like one of his most recent ones, The Ocean at the End of the Lane. People were losing their minds over that book. I read it and I liked it, but I am not making the deep emotional connection to it that some people are. Maybe it's something I have to revisit at a different point in my life. But anyway, he's a wonderful writer, and as I said, if I could have anybody's life and career and just make it mine, it'd be his, because he does all the things I want to do. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So I'll just check out Sandman then.
But yeah, I would just start Sandman. The first volume is called Preludes and Nocturnes and stuff. You can get them in, you can get them in the small. You can do it in the small way, the small trade paperbacks, and go through there and stuff like that. I mean, that was just a revolutionary comic, and something that I really wish I was old enough to read at the time. I was just starting to read comics around like 93 and stuff, when it was getting like. The comic itself, I think, started like in 89 or something. But by 93, it was like a phenomenon. Like, he was one of the people that was like literally changing the whole thing. Like, Sandman was a game changer in the world of comics. And I'm too young, but if I was a few years older, I would have been the kid wearing all black, listening to Tori Amos, reading Sandman in 1993. But I was a few years too young for it. So instead, I was the kid wearing, I don't know, whatever I wore, and reading like Venom, Lethal Protector. It's like Venom's the new kind of hero because he kills people and rips their fucking heads off, and there's so much of that. 93 is the most 90s year, if you ask me, especially with like comics and stuff like that. Superman died. Batman got his back broken and got replaced by a psychopath that brutalized criminals. Venom got his own series. The Punisher was at his absolute zenith in popularity. And Deadpool was just getting rolling.
Was that when did Frank Miller do Punisher?
Or Frank Miller didn't do Punisher.
Oh, is that right?
Do you mean
who am I thinking of?
Garth Ennis?
That's it.
That was a bit later. That was like later 90s. That might have been like 98 or something. Okay. But yeah, that was Garth Ennis.
That's right.
Yeah, Garth Ennis is cool. He's got a really interesting style and stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of what some of the newer films were based on, like his interpretation.
But yeah, with Neil Gaiman, I would start with that. I mean, and then like his novels are very interesting because a lot of them sort of meld like old style school like fairy tale stuff with like up to the date modern stuff, like something like American Gods. American Gods is not a kidsy book. It's very R-rated. and full of that stuff. So I mean, he can go all over the place, and he can mix them up pretty good. But there's still a few of his like major novels that I haven't read. I haven't read the one he did with Terry Pratchett, Good Omens. He and Terry Pratchett were really good friends. They did that together. I'm sure I'd like it. Terry Pratchett was a cool writer who has written so much stuff I don't even have time because he wrote so many goddamn books. But yeah, love Neil Gaiman. And there's a new Sandman series, Sandman Universe, that's just coming out now that I think he's the full writer on. What I'm waiting for in him in comics is for him to finally finish the Miracle Man run. That that got abandoned back in the early 90s. Because what it was, in the 80s, Alan Moore brought the character back, did some stuff, left, because that's what he does. And then they had Neil Gaiman pick it up, and he did his thing. And then it all fell apart, and it's been in limbo for 3 years. And he says that's going to get finished. He says, yeah, it's going to happen. We're going to finish it. So I'm kind of dying for that. So I love the Miracle Man saga. It's so cool. Something I'll have to talk about maybe on my channel, because I don't think I did. I need to do another video soon. I finally did a return video, but it was pretty bad. It didn't go too well.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I'm going to.
It's kind of a lot of rust. I don't think I stayed on topic too well, and I don't know. I didn't feel like my lighting was very good or something. Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to work on it. I still need to get another camera. That camera I got, I should have done a little more research. The camera I'm using now is fine, but I really should have gone above and gotten something even better because I feel like it's lacking. So we'll see what I do in the fall. I have some options. Once I get the mattress, I'll have some financial options and stuff. Right now, the mattress is the main priority, doing some saving and stuff like that. And that should be a reality, hopefully, by the end of September or start of October.
Cool.
That'll be good. But I guess one of the main thing we didn't touch on in the High Fidelity yet, which is worth exploring a bit, is Ian, Tim Robbins' character, yes. Who she leaves him for. It's funny too, because before we ever see him, he gives us a perfect description of him. Because it's just so she's having a conversation with Joan Cusack character, and then she says, that Ian guy. And then after he hangs up, she goes, what fucking Ian guy? And he's trying to figure out, she's dating somebody named Ian, and he's like, she's ranting her, he doesn't even know any named Ian and stuff like that. And then she finds that he checks the mailboxes in his building. It's for this guy, it's it's a guy that lives above me. And then he's talking about it, and he says all that stuff. But, this sort of character was definitely a popular thing in the 90s, too, to make fun of it. They're usually some sort of therapist or psychologist. He's got, a ponytail. He's all laid back and about being, not confrontational and let's, solve this. And he's talking about him. He's just he says, Steven Seagal, ponytail. And he's just he's lots of ethnic cooking, horrible smells, and he's just saying, listening to whatever, world music was popular at the time. Yeah, those people totally still exist and stuff. Yeah, I can understand why you don't like your girlfriend being with that.
Well, it's the sex that bothers him the most, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, at least that's honest, because that's something that would really bother me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
People can be like, oh, grow up. But I'd be like, no, the sex is a big part of it. It's important. It's as intimate as it gets. You like to think of somebody that you're in love with, rolling around with no clothes on, exploring the orifices of another person, because that's what sex is. So, yeah, maybe it should bother you a little bit if that's what's happening.
Well, he used
to have to hear him having sex with other people upstairs.
And it would be enough already.
Yeah. So it already starts to make you feel inadequate. It's this guy's a marathon man.
And she says,
he's better than me.
She says, if only I could be so lucky.
Yeah. And they laugh at the time, but now that she's with him, it's not funny anymore, is it?
Oh,
And it shows him imagining it, and they're having wild, passionate sex with their bodies writhing and stuff like that. And he's rolling around the bed I've been there kind of thing. At least I never had to imagine a specific person, but I just sort of imagined, exes or girlfriends or whatever, being with someone and how much it ripped me apart. I feel the pit in my stomach and stuff, and there was no sleep or rest. It's all you could focus on, all you could think about. But yeah, Tim Robbins, who is also a very tall man. He's 6'4", 6'5", and yet he's he's one of the least threatening people you'll see. But he's so tall, it's weird, it's odd, it's very odd.
Yeah, he's really tall. He's 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, what's really weird is you've heard me bitch about how whenever they adapt a novel and stuff, and then they seem to pay no attention to how the writer physically described the person. I mean, they did that again in Shawshank. Because Andy Dufresne, he has gone out of their way to mention that he is small, that he might be like 5'7". And it also makes a lot more sense. It's one of the reasons why his tunnel worked. If you're 6'5", 6'6", you need a much bigger tunnel.
Well, he was very slender, though.
He was slender. And again, I'm not going to pick it apart. It's a wonderful movie. It's one of the best adaptations you'll see. I know. But again, it's another case of them just saying, it says he's small. But let's just go with the tallest actor we found. Yeah, Red wasn't black.
Red wasn't black, right?
But that's one of those really cosmetic changes, because when they made the character black, they didn't change anything else. It was just like he happened to be black. It wasn't like you gave him some sort of backstory that had to do with being black or anything. It was just okay, and stuff like that. I don't mind. I don't mind, a race lift when it's like that.
Sure. I don't. I mean, it's just I couldn't take it out of my mind as I saw the movie first. Morgan Freeman does such a great job.
Yeah, when you read the story, you pretty much picture a black guy, which is fine. I mean, it's testament to how good the performance is and stuff.
Yeah, it was really good. I finished seasons.
Different seasons. Yeah, the last story is nothing very special, but the others are great.
It was that was about the woman who gets her head cut off at the end.
Yeah. Like it's okay, but
it's very bizarre.
It's really bizarre in the way it's told.
Yeah.
Because it jumps I can't remember because it's been a little while, but it's been about a year. But what is it? It's like somebody going to a club, and then there's a flashback to the first time. So there's at least 2 or 3 flashbacks inside each other.
I felt like I think he flashed back from the club, right? He was telling the story.
Because he's telling the story about the first time he visited the club.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of hard to follow.
There's at least 2 flashbacks inside, which makes it a little. And it's just there's not really any need to do it that way. You could have just told it in order.
Yeah.
Instead, you decide to have a flashback and then have another flashback, which is a little confusing. I love The Body. The Body's a great story, but it's one of the, again, very few things where I think the movie's better. The movie improves on The Body, I think. Stand By Me, it improves. It does a few narrative things differently. We talked about it. We did a whole episode on Stand By Me, and we talked about it. That's back when I was rereading it and stuff, was when we did Stand By Me, which was, I think, about last September or something like that.
What do you think is the best interpretation in film of one of King's stories or novels?
Okay.
The best, I guess, adaptation.
I know I've said this before. Fleeing me. I mean, Shawshank is up there, and it might be Stand By Me, because as I said, I think Stand By Me actually improves on the story. Mm-hmm. I think some of the changes they make are for the better. Sometimes the timing of things, there's some little things that whole thing, at the end where he fires the gun and he's like, "What, you gonna shoot all of us?" And he's like, "No, it's just you." In the original story, that's not Will Wheaton's character that does it. It's River Phoenix's. But to me, it's so much more poignant that they make it be Will Wheaton's character who does it. And a few other things. And for instance, that whole scene that I just said in the book takes place during a downpour with a thunderstorm. I think taking that out actually adds to the drama. Just having the silence. It's just still a sunny day, and it's just the eerie silence. I think that works better. So they made a few choices that I think really improve the narrative. So it's not like Stephen King is always the be-all, end-all, So as much as I tear apart a lot of these movies for changing stuff he wrote and things like that, I mean, every once in a while it can be done right. So it might be Stand By Me. Of course, as I've said, what brought all this up was the new It movie and how happy I was with it. I mean, there's still some changes, as we talked about, that I think are kind of annoying and pointless, but it is really quite good.
Well, I'm watching the new Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. I was gonna watch that. I need to get a new TV remote. My buttons have failed. So I was trying to record it so I could watch it in order. I don't even know how many I've recorded now, or if I've recorded any, or if they've been knocked off. Mine is always so full that mine automatically knocks stuff off unless I tell it not to. So I might not have any of it. So I'll have to give another crack at it. That's just sort of that's not really anything he wrote, right? That's just new stuff that's just sort of bringing in an amalgamation of all his things.
Yeah, it's basically just combining it all together into a completely new story.
Seems like an interesting idea.
You
said the last one you were watching was confusing or something?
Yeah, we just watched it. We were talking about it and trying to point out the nods to certain movies. Like,
Sure.
I mean, there are certain books, and they just pretty much run everything. The Shining, Pet Cemetery, The Body, of course, Shawshank Redemption, because the prison is a big big character. It's really good.
There's a psychic kid, right? Is there a psychic kid? Or a kid with like telepathy or something?
No.
Really?
There's a psychic woman that flashes back to when she was a kid a little bit, but it's really kind of cool. It's got the guy that played Pennywise, Bill Skarsgård.
Oh, cool.
Kind of plays a similar character in this, and you're trying to figure out exactly what he is.
Mm.
And but the kid who plays the oh shit, what's the black kid in it?
Mike.
He that actor is also in this film. I mean, in this show.
Yeah.
So it's got like all kinds of connections, like Sissy SpaceX in there. It's all tied together, like the whole King universe, with.
Yeah, I knew that was kind of what they were doing. They're just sort of taking elements from everything and just making something original out of it, which seems like a neat idea.
Mm-hmm. It's like one of the lead actresses was in Rose Red, which I know you probably don't like the film, but
no, that was so boring. I almost I don't think he even finished it. And that's one of the few things he wrote that as a screenplay. That's all it was. It was a screenplay specifically to be that. So it's not even an adaptation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no Rose Red novel or short story. It was written to be that. So there's no excuses for how bad it is. It's so boring. Oh my god, it's boring.
Yeah, it's too long. That's for damn sure.
Nothing like I got at least 40. I watched a long time. I got at least 45 minutes in, maybe even further, and nothing had happened. Like nothing.
It's one of those things. Like it should be better than it is, because it's competent. That everyone's competent that's involved with the project, and
yeah,
it's I don't know.
Yeah, I'll eventually figure out a way to tackle it because it's something I want to check out for sure.
I have like 4 copies of that on DVD if you ever want one.
Rose Red?
Yeah. I don't know how I managed to get so many copies.
I guess I'd take it. It could be a collector's item, maybe.
Well, when my wife and I got married, we had to combine our collections. Had a lot of doubles in there, so.
A good sign, I guess.
She liked it a lot. She likes the. Is it what was it, a miniseries? However it was originally told.
I don't know. I don't think it was told in episodes. I should think it was one long thing. But maybe it's been so many years since I rented it that I rented it is how I saw it, and I can't.
It's like 3 or 4 hours long, I think.
It's super long, but I don't think it's broken into episodes.
It showed on television, right? It was like maybe a TV movie.
I guess it was, but I missed it at the time. Like I wasn't even aware of it when it happened. But it was a couple years later that I found it, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't heard of this," and I rented it, and I was like, "My God, I was so bored."
It's listed as a miniseries of 3 episodes. So.
Yeah, I guess that's how they did it, but maybe that's not how they put it together on the DVD. I guess.
4 hours and 14 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I made more than an hour and a half.
I fall asleep every time.
Yeah. Like, me, I can handle a long runtime if it's good. It's not the long runtime that knocked me out because I didn't even get to past 2 hours. I was just super bored by it. So it was not a late thing. This was probably around the same time that I had rented the here's one of my favorites, and that I always rant and rave about and would love to own is the 2004 miniseries or whatever you want to call it, or TV movie of Salem's Lot. It was around the same time, so maybe that's why I was excited to get it, because I love that. The only problem with that is it's not R-rated, so there's a few things that they couldn't push as far as they needed to. Apart from that, I love it. I really like it, and I would love to own it.
It was kind of like after they've already had like a few failures, like with like Langoliers and Tommyknockers and stuff, they actually put out a few decent ones.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was in Walmart about a month ago, in the movie section, they had a big Stephen King collection that I'd never seen before, just DVDs. And it was like Langoliers and all those and stuff. And it said, and I was almost going to buy it because it said Salem's Lot, but it had the 79 Salem's Lot, so I didn't get it. But it had like 8 or 9 on them for like maybe $20, $25 or something. There was a whole bunch. And I was just like, this is worth owning if I can have this. But no, it wasn't the right Salem's Lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of those. Like, I even like the Golden Years. I'm one of the few people that
I've never seen it.
It's not bad.
I've never seen it.
Tommyknockers, I remember liking.
I kind of like Tommyknockers for all of its stupidity. I like it's not on the like people make it sound like it's as bad as Langoliers, and it's not.
Langoliers is god awful.
Langoliers is a special kind of terrible, you know. I would just say the main thing about Tommyknockers is like it's kind of goofy and incoherent and has a disappointing ending, which is like how you could sum up King's career. Like he writes so many good things, and even his best stuff don't have really good endings. The ending of it is kind of the ending of The Stand, you know.
Yeah,
and he's gotten to a point where he doesn't know where to end anything. Because like a few years ago, I read Under the Dome. It was the first time I'd read like a fairly recent book, and I liked it a lot until the end. It was just like his usual thing. Spoilers, people. I'm going to spoil Under the Dome. When Stephen King doesn't know what to do, he reverts to what he did with The Stand. He just blows everything up, and that's what happens with Under the Dome. Under the Dome ends with like a massive explosion, killing most of the people. Like he didn't know what else to do, so he just blew up most of the people.
Where did the explosion come from?
I don't know. I think the humans set it off themselves purposely, although I can't remember why. It's only been 2 or 3 years since I read it, and I already kind of forget the reasoning.
So that was a novel. That was a novel?
It was a novel. Really big, thick novel that had a map and everything, and that's why I was excited, because it reminded me kind of the old style he used to do. And it is good. It's enjoyable. And again, I know the show was fairly popular. The show is nothing like the novel. Again, they just throw everything out. The only thing that's the same is the concept. Everything else is different. The characters are cast completely different. Events happen in different sequences. Also, like I haven't watched any full episodes, but I've seen enough to see that they just throw stuff out the window.
Yeah, I watched the first season, I believe, and I just really wasn't into it.
Yeah. I didn't love the book, but it's probably my favorite like recent Stephen King novel, because I have not really liked too much of the stuff he's produced in the last, say, 15 years. When I was home, not home, when I was in Sydney, and I had gone through the books I'd already read, and a few that I'd impulse bought at the bookstore and stuff. I was like, okay, I can't just keep doing this. I need to find some books in this room. And there was a copy of Lacey's story, or whatever it's called. And like I read about 100 pages of that, and like I was not at all interested.
Lacey's Story is the name of it?
Yeah, but it's spelled like Lisey.
Funny, that's the guard's
story? Yeah, or maybe it's Key. Anyway, it's Lacey's something.
No,
I think it's story.
Else.
It's about this woman who her husband died, and now she's sort of like sorting through all his stuff. And I guess at some point she discovers some weird supernatural thing, like a reason for why he was such a good writer. I didn't even get in that far. Like I was more than 100 pages in, and I hadn't uncovered whatever the hook is of the book, and I was not interested. I didn't like her character. I'm an ageist, I have to say. Whenever he writes about older characters, I do not give a shit. And he does it more as he gets older, of course. Like, the book he's written that I dislike the most and absolutely hate is Insomnia. And the main character in that is like a man who's like in his 80s or something. And I'll admit right now, I only hated him because of his age. I resented having to read about like this geriatric old guy. Oh yeah, and he has sex too. There's sex scenes with him having sex with old women. So thanks a lot, King. And I mean, he touches on it a bit also in a good novel, in the bookending stuff, The Green Mile, because he talks about, how younger people will mistreat older people, and it's not right. And I agree with that. But at the same time, I just don't find people of really advanced age interesting to read about in the slightest.
Our leathery skin touched each other.
Yeah, so call me ageist if you want. But anyway, in Lacey's story, she's not that old. She's like 50. But for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't want to read about this 50-year-old woman digging through her dead husband's stuff. Like, I don't even know what eventually happens. Like I said, I read a lot. I read over 100 pages into it, and stuff like it still happened. It's just her, it's just her just remembering a bunch of stuff. And none of it, as far as I gotten, was that interesting. I guess eventually, something happens. Yeah, I guess there's this whole thing now about like some fan of her, some crazy fan of her husband starting to stalk her and stuff. I didn't get to that part.
Oh.
So eventually stuff starts to happen in that book, but I didn't get to that part. All I read was like chapter after chapter of her like looking through stuff and like remembering things, and none of it was interesting. But anyway, whenever we talk about Stephen King, it goes too far because there's just so much.
Well, I'm really into it right now.
Yeah, I get that. I always come back to it. I'm reading other stuff recently, though. I'm reading a bunch of stuff. So I'm finished the first Red Wall, which I had never read in my youth somehow. I'm reading the book about Cronenberg.
Mm-hmm.
I am reading the annotated Sandman. I'm reading several things else here.
I'm about to start Pet Sematary.
That's a really good one.
And I'm kind of in the middle of...
that's one of his absolute best.
Was it Night Shift? Was that the name of the short stories?
Yeah, I'm about halfway through that myself. Here's a nice new copy I got. But, I've read all the significant stories from it so far. Like the... yeah, I jumped around a little bit, actually. Yeah, I didn't actually read this in order. I jumped around, which I don't usually do. Usually I just read these things. But there were a few stories I wanted to get to right away, like Children of the Corn, which is further on. And Quitters, Inc., which is actually quite well represented in that movie that they do that has it. Is that Cat's Eye? Yeah. I think
right.
Cat's Eye has Quitters, Inc., doesn't it? Yeah. That's quite well done. It's pretty close to the story. But yeah, so I've actually jumped around in this one. I read, I think, the first 3, and then I started to move around. But my favorite is the first one, is Jerusalem's Lot, which is basically Stephen King doing his best H.P. Lovecraft impersonation. And that sort of made me go back to Lovecraft. So I have a book of Lovecraft, but I only have one. And recently I've been reading a lot of his stuff online because Lovecraft stuff is in the public domain, so you can read pretty much any of his stuff. So I've been reading some of his shorter stuff right now. So that's my mood. My horror mood is not King, it is Lovecraft.
Jacob McCullum says he really liked Lizzie's story. Lizzie? L-I-S-E-Y?
That's the one I was talking about.
Lizzie's story, one of my favorite things he's written recently, although it's over 10 years old now.
Yeah. As I said, I was reading it just last month, and I read fairly far into it, and nothing about it interests me. As I said, I'm sure eventually stuff started to happen. Nothing had happened as far as I'd read in. It was just chapter after chapter of her reading, of her digging through stuff, and then remembering things, and none of it was interesting to me.
Yeah, maybe it picks up.
I'm sure it picks up. I'm sure it does. I mean, like eventually some supernatural thing is going to come in, because that's a Stephen King story, but I lost patience with it, which I don't usually do with books.
Yeah, I think it's funny. People hail, different seasons as like his, non-horror stuff. But I mean, it's still like lots of supernatural stuff going on in all of those stories.
Is there? I thought the whole point was that there wasn't.
But I mean, there is. It's just it's either morbid or the woman gets her head cut off, and it's like looking at the guy and.
Well, that last one is the only one that has anything supernatural. There's nothing supernatural in the body or Shawshank or Pupil. Like there's no magic.
Well, I mean, it's almost like a thriller.
It's dark. Yeah, but that's it's dark subject matter, but it's not supernatural. There's no.
That Pupil blew me away.
Yeah,
doesn't
that just grab you like right off? Like, yeah,
I wanted it to keep going.
Yeah, it's so intense. Like the movie version's pretty good. I think they did as well as they could do with the limitations that a movie has. But like the real, like the original story is just so raw and great. It just grabs you right from the beginning. It's so interesting. It's such a neat idea.
I need to watch it again. Brad Renfro's in that, right?
Yeah, he's the kid. He's good. I mean, one of the main differences, they have to age him up, like, and condense the storyline. In the original story, it's over about 4 years. It starts when he's like 13 and ends when he's like 17. This, it's more like he's already 17 and they only know each other for a few months. They do a pretty good job, like I said. With the restrictions that you have in a movie, like you can't have certain things happening or certain characters doing stuff, and the director said, I just couldn't do that ending. Like, I don't think I could have done justice to it. So he really changes the ending. It's not a bad change, but it's not great either. Do you remember how they changed the ending?
I don't remember the movie.
Okay, I won't give it.
I don't remember the ending of the movie.
Well, I know since you recently read the story, you know how that ends. It does that does not happen at all.
I was thinking it didn't. Yeah,
nothing even remotely close to that happens in the movie. It's an interesting change. It's not horrible, but yeah, I won't spoil things for you though. It's a good movie. I mean, it gets the performances it needs from the two leads. Brad Renfro and Ian McKellen are both really good in what they're doing. They're both really intense and stuff.
Yeah, Jacob McCallum says the short story is much more bleak than the film. The Boogeyman is probably the scariest story to me. It's simple but very creepy.
I read it, but I don't remember it. Like, I remember nothing about that.
I heard that they're doing
I'll read it soon. It's in here, so I will get to it. But I haven't read Night Shift since I was a kid. It's been over 20 years since I read this stuff. But,
the guy that wrote that movie, A Quiet Place, is doing I think a film, either a film or a miniseries of the Boogeyman.
I haven't seen A Quiet Place yet. I've heard it's pretty cool.
It's really good. It's probably the best horror film I've seen all year. Cool. Really well done.
Yeah, so we're thinking that maybe after we do 2 or 3 more episodes, we'll maybe try to do something horror-like as we head into the fall. But we'll do a few others before we do that, before we commit to that. We just came off a long series, so right now we're not committed to any sort of series. We'll just, we'll keep it loose for the next little while and stuff. But we always do come back to horror. We're big horror fans. We talk about it a lot and stuff. So it's not too far off that I'm sure we'll, do another horror film or two. But returning to High Fidelity, it's funny. It's sort of a movie that's a bunch of studying contradictions for me, because there's, on the one hand, I find the character so dislikable, and I'm really annoyed by the overarching plot, the whole idea that he gets his girlfriend back and that everything works out for him, and I don't even like the girlfriend he's trying to win back. She doesn't seem worth it, but I still really do enjoy the movie. And even as though I dislike his character in a lot of ways, I still sometimes do empathize and sympathize with him in smaller moments, and actually kind of enjoy it when he's conversationally addressing the audience. I do like that. I think John Cusack was a really good casting choice for that. I mean, the main problem with About a Boy is, like, why the hell did you cast Hugh Grant? You're just like, British actor with name recognition. Hugh Grant. Like,
there you go.
You read the novel, there's no way you can reconcile that character to Hugh Grant. Like, and that's not me calling Hugh Grant not a good actor. It's just, it's beyond what he could do. He's not that person, and he never will be. But those are the only 2 of his books I've read, and of course he's continued to write books. And I don't know why I stopped reading Nick Hornby. Part of the reason is because he writes kind of the way I do, and I just mean that's a coincidence. I was never influenced by Nick Hornby. I mean, I already wrote kind of the way he writes before I read anything of his. We just have some similarities going there. So I don't know. Maybe that made me not want to read more of his stuff. I don't know. I think those are the only 2 that have been made into movies. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna quickly check.
Reminds me of like a Sing Street or something. Did you ever see Sing Street?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think we talked about it.
That was a fun movie. It was a nice little surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny, Hornby's a bit older than I thought he was. He was born in 1957. Because really his writing and his style and his stories, and you get it from this movie too, have a very Generation X feel to them. And yet he's a bit older than Generation X. But, the characters are Generation Xers, or Gen Xers, like John Cusack and stuff. Being like a 30-something in the mid-90s.
Right.
And people of our age, that's the generation we looked up to and was sort of most affected by. We talk about it a lot ad nauseum, particularly like in the early 90s. I'm reading comics by Todd McFarlane. I'm listening to Soundgarden. I'm playing video games by Hideo Kojima. all these guys are born within a few years of each other in the same thing, and they all had sort of the same sort of sensibilities going for it. It was a dark and cynical time from a dark and cynical generation. As we said, they were the first generation to grow up where divorce was like a normal thing. So that's part of the thing that skewed them and stuff. And, you know, it just spread to everything. Like, even the Mega Man series. That's when Mega Man X came out, where suddenly it was a dark, bleak future, and Mega Man's name was X, and everything was more extreme and dark and heavy, even though it was such a cutesy series. Like, everything in that era just got its hooks into it. And it was the Gen X people doing it. So, yeah, I think I always thought Nick Hornby was a bit younger, and he was part of that, but he's a bit older. But in any case, he's good at writing about that stuff.
You said the book was 57?
No, he was born in 57.
I mean, sorry, 95?
Yeah, the book's 95.
Okay, so he was, almost 40 then.
Yeah, so I mean, fairly close, I guess. I think 57 is too old to be Gen X. I think Gen X is basically...
Is it not? Like, Gen X is like baby boomers, right?
What's way after baby boomers?
It's after baby boomers?
Yes. The baby boomers came right after the war. Right. Baby boomers are basically 45, maybe even all the way up to 1960. Then you have sort of a lost few years. Gen X is usually considered to be maybe 64 or 65 at the earliest, and later 70s at the latest.
So we're technically millennials?
A lot of people do consider somebody my age a millennial, not yours, which I really resent. And a lot of people who are like 34, 35 really resent being considered millennials.
Why would you not start it on a whole year?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that make the millennial start be like 82, which I don't agree with at all.
Well, I mean, before that term, it was Generation Y.
Yeah, that's the problem. See, we're part of a lost generation. We're Generation Y, which is a generation that never distinguished itself. We're kind of like an in-betweener.
We just kind of copycatted until we were surpassed.
And yet, I'm still much happier to identify myself that way as than a millennial. I mean, it's too bad. Millennials have become such a punchline over the last, few years and punching bag. Like, millennials this, or people are fighting on message boards. I'll be on like Sportsnet, and people are talking hockey, and somebody will say something. They're like, "Oh, you're probably a millennial because blah 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 blah." I'm like, where's this coming from? So like, millennials out there, I'm on your side. I'm not just gonna act like you're all vapid idiots that don't know anything. It's too bad that you become this for the older generations, to just dismiss you out of hand, that you're shallow and you're stupid and you don't work hard and you don't know anything. I'm on your side, millennials, but at the same time, I'm not one of you. I'm too old.
So yeah, so I mean, well, let's just say it does start at 82. When the hell does it stop? Because there's like 10-year-olds running around screaming at their millennials.
It would stop around 2000.
Okay.
So whoever was born in the 21st century is something else.
Okay.
I mean, there's no hard and fast rules for this, right? Or at least by the time there are, it'll be way later. Like the most concrete of those terms we have right now is baby boomer, and that's basically because so much time has passed, so that we can look at it objectively. But I mean, baby boomers definitely considered 45 because the whole point was it was the end of World War II,
right?
Which also coincides with a great period of prosperity, particularly in the United States. While so many other countries were devastated by World War II, the U.S. was not. The U.S., of course, had its losses, but not at all compared to other countries.
We weren't in it nearly as long as some of those other countries.
And it served to pump up the economy quite a bit and helped the U.S. really become. I mean, it was always going to become a superpower. This just sped up the process a bit more. By the start of the 20th century, the U.S. was already on the verge of being a superpower. It was getting. It's funny, all the things that so many Americans complain about now is what made them great in the first place, immigration and stuff. Like, that's why America is the super country that it is, because it did something no other countries did, in that it had like a crazy amount of people from other countries build up its citizenship. Canada is that on a smaller scale. We are the same thing, just on a smaller scale. But before that, no other country ever did that. And that's why people talk about American exceptionalism, which you'd think is like as a cynical Canadian, I wouldn't believe in it, but I do. I believe in American exceptionalism. I just probably don't define it the same way some people do.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, my point is, so the U.S. was always on track for that anyway, but because World War II, because, like you said, it pumped up the economy so much that, you know, it launched it onto it. And hence the baby boom generation, which, you know, applies to people in other parts of the world too, but really starts in Canada and the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, I think other countries like kind of had that was their goal, was to actually make babies because they lost so many in the war.
Yeah, nobody more than the Soviets, and that was something that was really a problem, right? That set off the Cold War right away. We had the U.S. rising as a superpower, and the Soviets emerging as a superpower too, but also severely weakened at the same time because nobody lost more from the war than they did, and it didn't help having a nut job like Stalin in charge. People said, you know. But anyway, I love talking history, and it gets dragged out so much, and we can put that in some better historical context for another movie another time, I'm sure. We got to talk a little about war and, you know, post World War II when we were doing Ozu, of course. We talked about Japan and the post-war period, which was a lot of fun. And yes, there's probably another Ozu movie or two in our future, far down the road, because I really am fascinated by him. But as we said, we're just going to clear the deck here and just do some, you know, some one-offs and stuff before we even think about doing another series. So, yeah.
Yeah, but, I was watching something on YouTube was comparing Ozu to...
Yeah, I showed it to you. It was Ozu and what's his name that we like? Current filmmaker. Oh my God, Wes Anderson.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we have talked. We're probably gonna do a Wes Anderson film in the near future because we've talked about that a little bit.
We should, yeah.
So we will definitely do that. So yeah, hopefully get some momentum going now. Do some Tuesdays in a row. And get some consistency. Looking forward to that. But anyway, guys, that was High Fidelity, which, as I said, is a movie that I have a lot of sort of conflicting feelings about. But at the end of the day, I like the movie. You know, I liked the book. I like the movie. For all the things that annoy me about it, I still I'm kind of okay with them. Some of it just because of John Cusack. You know, he's pretty good at being that kind of character. He's kind of a similar character in a movie he did a couple years earlier in Grosse Pointe Blank, which is a movie I like a lot that I think is an overlooked movie that's a lot of fun. It has, for the martial arts fan like me, it has Benny the Jet Rodriguez in it. Or not Rodriguez. Benny the Jet Rodriguez, sorry. That's the fictional kid from The Sandlot. No, this is Benny the Jet Urquidez, the real-life American kickboxer who was in some martial arts movies, notably Meals on Wheels and Gorgeous, where he had fight scenes with Jackie Chan. But anyway, he's one of the assassins that when he's at, you know how it's all about him going to high school reunion, he's the assassin that gets sent after him that he's fighting in the school. And actually, he was a teacher for John Cusack. I'm pretty sure he also taught Swayze.
Oh, wow.
He's the one that taught Swayze karate.
For Roadhouse or just in general?
I think it was in general, but I think that maybe that's where they might have met on Roadhouse. In any case, Swayze, I know his relationship with martial arts was earlier than Roadhouse. Like he was already a black belt by the time Roadhouse was on. So it's not like he was learning specifically for it. Like he did train for it because anybody would, but he wasn't somebody that came in cold that had to learn martial arts for the first time. He was already an amateur martial artist at the time of Roadhouse. That's probably what helped him get the role. But it was Benny the Jet who personally was training him on there. And I think he's the guy that gave him his black belt. It's funny, you know what, on that note, before I know we're going to wrap in a couple minutes, guys. But on that note, it's funny, for the first time in quite a while, I watched almost all of the movie, not the whole thing. I watched about 75% of Beverly Hills Ninja. It was on TV the other day.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, as stupid as that movie is, it actually gets a lot of stuff right about ninjas, which sounds crazy.
Really?
It does. But on the other hand, the other thing, it reminds you of what a great martial arts talent Robin Shou was. And it's too bad that he emerged when he did. It was like, you know, he was in Mortal Kombat, he was Liu Kang. And then like by the time the 90s ended, it was kind of like the end of like that martial arts phase that had happened. And there just weren't roles for him. But he was really talented martial artist. He was a really good guy. And speaking of people who train people, I think I mentioned this before on the Sausage Factory or something like that. But, you know, the Resident Evil movies, they have that character Anna played by whatever the hell her name is, that model turned actress that was in The Fifth Element.
Oh,
Mila
yeah.
Jovovich, Robin Shou trained her. That's how she learned her martial arts. She learned from him. So at least he got some paychecks indirectly through Resident Evil. But anyway, Robin Shou, he'd be up there now. He'd be old, but he's got to be well into his 50s. That doesn't mean he can't do anything. Lots of martial artists can still do stuff way into their 50s.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan's doing stuff in his 60s.
I can't even remember the plot of that movie.
Beverly Hills Ninja?
Yeah, Chris Farley's in it, right?
Yeah, it's a Chris Farley vehicle.
And I know there's one point where he has to hop a big fence.
Yeah, and he uses he swings back and forth on a palm tree, and then Chris Rock does the same thing. It's one of the early movie roles for Chris Rock where he's just like a stupid sidekick, funny guy. There's a scene of him literally trying to choke a chicken, which they squeeze all the. Yeah.
I remember there being a shopping montage. Is that in there when he goes and buys a bunch of clothes, like Pretty Woman style?
Probably. I missed that part the other day. I didn't see that part. But yeah, I know there's a part where like he's trying to disguise himself and he dresses just like a pimp. That's probably what led to it.
I know.
Like, he's trying to blend in, but he's never been in America before, so he dresses like a pimp, which of course makes you stand out. Aha! Comedic genius.
I didn't like it very much when I saw it. I remember just feeling sorry for Chris Farley.
It's just one of those, really low-hanging fruit type of comedies. It's like, he's fat and stuff, and ninjas are kind of popular. He'll be a fat, stupid ninja in Beverly Hills.
That's how it was conceived right there.
And like I said, as bad and lazy as it is, it does kind of do one thing sort of right. And one thing that might make maybe serious martial artists / Asians that grew up with martial arts, like in their countries, happy. And that is, think about it. Like, I love Iron Fist. Iron Fist is one of my favorite Marvel characters, but he's part of the whole Dances of Wolves things decades before Dances of Wolves. He's a white foreigner that bounced into their country and learned their martial arts so well that he was better than all of them. He was their champion. Oh, bow down to the great white hope. Yeah, that's right. He's better at your culture than you are, But Chris Farley is like the realistic version of that. He's a white baby that grew up in with a clan of ninja in Japan, and he's by far the worst one. In fact, he's a joke as a ninja. So it's kind of fitting, right? It's more realistic.
Oh, that's such a cliche premise. It's like Elf, except with ninjas.
Yeah, he's a fish out of water.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like Kung Fu Panda, exactly. That's what Jarrett Penn says.
Yeah. The Kung Fu Panda's good movies.
Yeah.
I defend those as good movies. I still have the third one. I keep meaning to watch the third. I haven't watched it yet. But the second one's good, too. Gary Oldman, that's one of his best performances. I swear to God. Gary Oldman as a CGI peacock is one of his greatest performances. He is fabulous in that movie. I mean, it's testament to how great the animation is, too. But, I mean, to be that's some great voice acting, man.
Oh, man.
But anyway,
I think Gary Oldman's a little
speaking of which, as we said, we will talk about maybe some martial arts films coming up. We're trying to figure out how to tackle that exactly. Maybe do more than one in an episode because obviously they don't have the same sort of depth. It'd be more just talking about how good the fights are, mostly. So we might maybe do an episode where we talk about several in the same episode. That's a possibility. We'll see what we do with that.
Yeah, I'd like to do a few different styles too.
Sure. There's a whole bunch of ones that just popped up on my Netflix that I keep putting off watching that I should before they disappear.
Like Oh My Ghost?
Well, that's Asian, but I mean, there's a whole bunch of actually martial arts ones. There's one with Leslie Chung on from '83 that I really want to watch that I'd never heard of that looks cool. And Flying Guillotine is on there too,
that's a great one.
It's a crazy one from the '70s, and I've never seen it. I know its reputation, but I've never seen it, so I'm going to watch that soon too. So soon I'll be in a mode for that.
I forget. There used to be a channel we had that did that in the early 2000s. Would do. That's how I saw all the original Zatoichi films.
Oh yeah.
They would do I forgot what they called it, Asian cinema or whatever it was. Yeah. But it was really cool. It was like Encore or something like that. One of the not premium channels, but right above that, like a movie channel, but not a premium movie channel.
No, I never got to see any martial arts movies through TV. It was always renting them, and now later finding them on places like Netflix and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it's so much good stuff out there.
Because I know that, like, in the U.S. at least, I remember Mike would talk about how, like, in like the 70s and 80s during the craze, they would, like, you know, for an afternoon show a bunch of them on TV and stuff. Like, I never had anything like that. Well, it was like Kung Fu Theater or something like that, he'd say. I think he said like WGN or something did that, which is crazy.
Yeah. Back when I was a kid, yeah. But a lot of those other films I was telling you about, I actually recorded. I had a DVD recorder. That was a thing once upon a time.
Nice.
And recorded stuff on the DVDs, and I had all those. And I'm a big fan of all the Blind Swordsman stuff.
Yeah.
I even like the remake that Beat Takeshi was in.
I didn't see that.
That's really good.
Sounds cool though.
I like a lot of stuff he's done. Pretty much everything he's done. He was even in that the Outrage, and I think it was a sequel to Outrage also.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen those?
No.
Man, Outrage is awesome. Yeah.
There's a couple, not martial arts, but there's a couple like Andy Lau action movies on there too. They're like,
oh really?
I know you saw one not too long ago. You said it was really good.
Oh shit! Yeah, I was telling work to watch it. I can't think of the name of it right off.
I hope it's still there. I love Andy Lau. I think he's kind of like the Asian Harrison Ford. Like he's like the man over there, man, and he's aging spectacularly well.
Oh yeah, he's 56.
Yeah, like he was never a professional martial artist like some of these other guys, but he did do some decent martial arts in the movies. And he's interesting. Like I said, he's like Harrison Ford because he does serious like drama, but he does action roles too.
Shockwave is the one I was.
Yes, that's it. I think that's still available.
He was in that Great Wall piece of shit with Matt Damon.
Yeah,
oh,
it makes me sad that that so many of these like Chinese actors of like great renown every once in a while just to like get their faces out there to do a Hollywood movie, they have to do something like that.
I guess you got to do what you got to do, but. Yeah, what a stupid premise. But let me say this real quick before we go off. I saw The Meg the other day.
Yeah. Was it?
And I really liked it. I liked it a lot. It's stupid fun,
right.
What you're getting yourself into.
Sure.
But no, I liked it a lot. But I've never seen an American film cater to the Chinese as much as that film did.
Well, that's been a real trend in the last few years.
Yeah, I know.
So even more now, huh?
This is, I mean... I was fine with it. It was just kind of obvious.
Yeah.
And that movie did great. It's still doing great over in China. So
yeah, that's exactly right. It's become like such a big trend now because they know how important the Chinese box office is. I mean, some of these movies and some of them we think did terribly, we dismiss out of hand, did fantastic over there. That's like why Transformers keeps going, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like we started off liking the Transformers movies, but as they got shittier, we were like, no. But they kept going because they just still loved them over there in China and Japan and places.
Yeah, they do nothing over here, and they do $50 million over there or whatever.
Weekend.
Yeah, I mean stuff like Battleship. You're like, man, who the hell went and saw that? Like, none of us.
No,
nobody in North America.
Maybe there's cultural differences too, but maybe to defend them a little, maybe it just seems like kind of like a novelty to them. Because it's an American movie.
Well, yeah, they just like to watch big blockbuster movies. I mean, hell, I mean, half the team was probably Chinese that worked on it.
Yeah. But yeah, I never saw it. But I guess there's a whole added scene in, I don't know if it's Iron Man 3 or Avengers 2, where there's this whole point where like Tony Stark is being worked on by a bunch of Chinese doctors. It's only in that version. It's not in the version we saw. It's an added scene that they added for Chinese. And I guess like all the doctors are like big name stars. I don't remember. It's either Iron Man 3 or Avengers 2. And there's this, it's like he's going in for like, I don't know, for them to look at his weird, chest thing.
Right.
And stuff.
So what, did they fly them over to Georgia?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
See, I think that's pushing it a little bit. Like filming extra scenes. I think we're talking about two different pieces of work here that I mean, again, it doesn't bother me. It's just really blatant.
Yeah. That's also the reason why, like, in the movies, like, he has, like, this... They show Tony Stark's phone, which you think will be super badass, but for a bit of product placement, it's, like, this knockoff China phone that's actually really cheap.
Wow.
So, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We've always grown up with product placement, but now we're seeing product placement for other countries. That's kind of a new spin on things.
I think we're going to be the other way around pretty soon. Like, we're going to have their actors doing our commercials.
I'm ready for it. Why not?
It's not going to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to sell like pineapples or whatever the fuck his commercial is over there.
Yeah, nothing beats Nick Cage doing the pachinko commercials.
Oh man, it's so many ridiculous ones.
They're just in craziness piled on more craziness, and he's the perfect guy for it.
Oh man,
Nick Cage.
I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, real quick. The Kevin Spacey did a film. It was a Chinese production film, but Kevin Spacey was in it.
Recently?
A few years ago. I haven't ever seen it, but I heard about it, and I don't think it did very well. So they kind of scrapped that whole. They're trying to do it themselves, you know. Like, fuck outsourcing movies. We'll do it ourselves with their actors.
Sure. It's not like they don't have a film industry.
Of course, this was before he, ruined his career by.
Yeah. The big news now is that he had like some sort of recent movie that made like $500 on the weekend or something.
He did, The Billionaire Boys Club.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the name of this stupid movie. Anyway.
I almost feel like there must be more. Like, did I miss something about his allegations? Because they come down harder on him than almost anybody. All I've heard is that he had some sort of encounter with, who was it, Anthony Rapp in the 80s. Yeah. When Anthony Rapp was like 16 or 17. And I'm not saying that's not bad, but I'm saying that's all I've heard. That's the only thing I've heard.
Now, Dustin Hoffman's son came out and said,
"Oh yeah, that he hit on him while he was rehearsing with Dustin Hoffman or something."
Oh, was that all he did? Was hit on him? Okay.
Or no, it wasn't Dustin Hoffman's son. It was guy from Jaws.
Oh, Richard Dreyfuss.
It was Richard Dreyfuss's son. It said that he and Richard Dreyfuss were doing like they were doing a movie together, and he'd just gone over to visit them, and they were gonna just not as part of the movie, but just on their own, like rehearse the scene together. His son was there, and he said like he kept putting like his hand on his leg and stuff, even though he kept getting up and moving. But again, his brother came out and said, "Yeah, he's the devil." Like his brother, think at least. Whether he believes it or not, has told the press that Kevin Spacey is he's like you have no idea how evil my brother is.
You're never getting any more money from me, Daryl. I'm not going to give you anything else.
Well, he said that they had an abusive Nazi-loving father.
That sounds like somebody who wants to get paid for a story.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's what he says. And he said he was the older brother, so he tried to take the brunt of the abuse to protect Kevin. He's like, but then he grew up into a monster anyway. Like he gave this. He just sounds ridiculous. I mean, maybe it's true. I'm not going to say, but it does sound crazy.
Wouldn't you think if that was the case, like a lot of people would come out like, yeah, man, Kevin Spacey's an asshole.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Like he's really good at playing an asshole, so it's not hard to believe he is an asshole.
Sure, I mean,
but I haven't heard. But I'm saying I haven't heard that,
right.
And that's what I mean. And yet, when they're talking about certain actors, and of course, in the past year, how bad it's been for them. Which I guess is good. Like Kevin Spacey seems to be the one at absolute rock bottom. And like I said, I feel like, did I miss stuff? Did more stuff come out and I didn't hear it? Because he just seems to be completely dead. Some of these guys, they lie low for 3 or 4 months and they come back and everything's fine. That is not the case with Kevin Spacey. Like you said, his career has gone off a cliff and it's not coming back.
Well, yeah, they ended his show in House of Cards.
I thought they continued it without him.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's
okay.
That's
they
what. They initially said it.
Yeah,
I think they went back on the original statement, but they.
Too bad. I really liked him in Baby Driver.
He kind of, he was an asshole in that movie.
Yeah, he's good at doing that.
He kind of came. He used it as an opportunity to come out of the closet, as a gay man,
which really made gay people mad because there's that's not when you do that.
He was manipulating it.
Yeah, big deflection.
Right, deflection, exactly. But the movie I was telling you about is called Inseparable from 2011. Original title, Zinging Buling.
So that was a Chinese production starring Kevin Spacey.
Right.
Yeah. Did you hear about the crazy billionaire over there that's been trying to do this crazy underwater Avatar movie.
Oh no.
Oh man, it's nuts. You should probably look it up. Like I can't remember how many years it's been going on, but there's all these people that like Americans that are like, they're not names. They're just people that wanted to be actors that like auditioned and got cast in the roles. And they're like completely nobodies. Like they're waiters over here, and they're like the main people because he wanted white people for some of these roles. It's all about like Atlantis and this like crazy epic battle and stuff. And he's a billionaire, and he's financing it all just out of pocket himself. Yeah, you can find pictures and stuff, everything. I think you can even find a trailer for it. Just look up like Chinese water Avatar or something like that. Anyway, you can check that after we go off the air. So yeah, I guess we've gone on some length about some other stuff, as we often do. And that's part of our charm. I'm sure you're very thrilled. But anyway, that's High Fidelity, folks. We don't have next week lined up, but we'll let you know as soon as we can. As we said, since we finished a long-running series, we're off series for a little while, so we'll just do, some one-offs here and there. And we've already discussed some of the possibilities for the future. As always, if you have something in particular that you're interested in, you can always let us know. We certainly do take that under advisement because, we want to do stuff that you guys are interested in, for sure. So anyway, we thank you very much for being with us tonight, even though we were really late. And hopefully we will see you next Tuesday. So from the Pocket Dimension, I'm Cole, and that's Jay. We thank you very much.
Thanks for watching.
And
see you next
peace out,
time.
guys. Bye-bye.